Our program continues with expert insights on global trade friction, how it is affecting our homegrown business. The speaker for this session is Professor Lim Chin Leng. A short bio of Professor Lim. Professor Lim is the Cho Ming Lee Professor of Law at the Chinese University of Hong Kong and practices with a leading London commercial set. He is also a visiting professor at King's College London and an honorary senior fellow of the British Institute of International and Comparative Law. A lawyer by training, he is a practicing barrister at Keating Chambers, London. Apart from specializing in commercial disputes, his legal experiences include treaty advice and representation in sovereign negotiations. Professor Lim's writings have been cited by appellate courts, bar associations, in legislative inquiries, and in the Royal Commission and International Law Commission reports. And now it is my great pleasure to invite on stage Professor Lim Chin Leng. Let us welcome him.
Selamat pagi, good morning. I think in light of the composition of the room, can I just address the three very distinguished former CEOs of MATRADE? Malaysian companies, not least, small and medium-sized enterprises, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it's good to be home. I would first like to thank MATRADE, and I would like to congratulate MATRADE. I would like to thank MATRADE because many years ago, when I had stopped being counsel to another country and I was sitting on a Hong Kong trade body, it was a MATRADE CEO who brought me back to the country of my birth and my citizenship to start to view things from the perspective of our country, and that person was Datuk Dr. Wong. I would also like to congratulate MATRADE for triggering what essentially is a national dialogue, which comprises not just some of the largest enterprises represented here this morning, but also our SMEs, and therefore triggering an inclusive process. Before I came here, there was a short telephone conversation where, of course, coming fresh from several press interviews since the Trump administration came into the White House, I thought that I would just come here and explain to people what's been going on. But my colleague in MATRADE was quite clear that this talk has to be useful for us. What is it about what's happening in the world that affects us? Why should we care? So let me first put policy aside. Let me put the global situation aside for a while. And let me talk about compliance. It's not the most exciting word, but I have seen how container loads of our products get stuck, where there is uncertainty about whether they can enter a market for retail or whether they are only commercial samples. And when these things happen, they cause tears. People tend to think of compliance as a matter of meeting another export market's regulations. That's not all that it means. Compliance is about your rights. Exporters have rights. They don't just meet the requirements that the export market might seek to impose upon them. Let me give you 2 examples of that. In the first example, we all know that if you're selling a product, that product may be sent to your export market in different batches. That product will be priced differently depending on the transaction for a very simple reason. Between today and tomorrow, there will be currency fluctuation. If you are the customs administration of a country, you might not want to go through the trouble of looking at the price of each transaction, so you take all the different prices for that product being exported from Malaysia, let us say, to another country, and you find the average price, then you apply your 12% duty on it. If you are alert as a Malaysian exporter, you will realize that if the actual price of your transaction is below the average price, your rights have just been violated, and someone just imposed more than 12% tariffs on your product. This is an actual case not involving Malaysia, and in the actual case I'm referring to, it concerned shoe exports to a developing country that was trying to simplify its customs administration. That country refused to change its practice, requiring compliance by exporters in that fashion, and the whole case ended up in the World Trade Organization. And that country lost because the exporters' country chose to press the exporters' rights in Geneva. I will come back to the story of what's happened to the world since, because if things do not go well, by December you will not be able to bring a case to Geneva anymore anyway. And I know there has been some discussion in this country where it was said that perhaps if the European Union were to press on with its current regime for palm oil imports, that maybe we should even consider a case. But part of the difficulty with the global situation at the moment is that you may not be able to bring a case to Geneva anymore. It's like saying there are no rules anymore. But I will come back to that. Let me give you a second example which touches on something that Yang Berhormat, the Minister for International Trade and Industry, referred to when he referred to our free trade agreements. This is an actual case where in North America there was a trade agreement in the 1990s which would allow Japanese Honda to manufacture a car partly in North America. And if enough of that car were manufactured in North America, then it will not attract duties. Part of the car was manufactured in the United States, and it was sent for further processing across the Canada-US border into Canada. At that juncture, Canada did not impose any tariffs and continued to work on the car. The finished car was sent back across the border to the United States, at which point the United States, which was Canada's own FTA partner, imposed duties. Now, the whole point of it was so that enough of the car could be manufactured by Honda in North America. It is not for two FTA partners, for one FTA partner to try and slit the throat of the other FTA partner. So just because you have an FTA partner doesn't mean compliance issues will not arise. Essentially, Canadian customs considered that enough of the car had been made in North America, but US customs did not. And this is a matter that involves something called rules of origin. We all know that in the 80s and in the 90s, Japanese production shifted abroad. Part of the reason is socioeconomic. You cannot imagine a place like Japan at that time having a lot of foreign workers, maybe people who look like us, live in Japan and working in factories, performing lower skilled jobs. So it made sense for those jobs to move to Southeast Asia. Of course, the high value add work, the manufacturing of the engine should still take place in Japan. But if you're talking about knocking sheets of metal together to make the body of a car, that can be done in places like Malaysia or Thailand or Indonesia. And today, we talk about climbing the value ladder, and I will come back to that. Just a third quick example of how tariffs are important. In 2007, 2008, when the global economy wasn't doing very well, we were very fearful. I remember a meeting in the WTO with a co-author of mine who happened to be the WTO chief economist. And our concern at that meeting had to do with something called tariff overhangs. Essentially, what tariff a country imposes on your product is not necessarily the maximum tariff that it can apply. So say if you're India and you've agreed that you won't apply tariffs beyond, let's say, 30% on a product, in practice you may just apply 20% anyway because you need the product to come in for your own manufacturing process. When economies start to do badly, you can push the tariff from 20 to 30, perfectly lawfully, because you've agreed to a limit of 30, and in practice you only impose 20. Now, these tariff overhangs are very hard to spot, but when you see something like the global financial crisis, the fear for people like us is that countries will start to push their tariffs to the wall, and exporters will get caught out. In that situation, things turned out quite happily because they resolved in the G20 at the time to ensure that that would not happen. Compliance is not just about tariffs. Compliance is about non-tariff measures as well. And this is a key point that I would like to make today because I think it is the future. I also think it is the future for Malaysia. This is something we know about. There was once a time when Malaysia was exporting shrimp to places like the United States. This was during a different Tun Mahathir administration. Two shrimp can look exactly the same, but one shrimp is an outlaw. I don't know if you understand the term. The reason the shrimp is an outlaw has nothing to do with the animal itself. It has to do with how the animal was caught. You can catch shrimp in different ways. But if you catch shrimp in a way that kills off a particularly rare sea turtle, then that shrimp caught with a high turtle kill rate is an outlaw shrimp. The outlaw shrimp can be prevented from entering the market, and this is what the United States did to our shrimp. And Malaysia, together with Thailand, together with India, brought a famous test case in Geneva and won. We won the case, but we didn't win on the point of law. It was a very important case because the WTO's appellate body, the World Trade Court, decided that you can block a product because the way it was made violated conservation aims. Now, this is a very important story. This is the beginning of a palm oil story in 2019. The United States won the point of law. We can impose environmental restrictions lawfully. But we won the case because even though they won the point of law, they were too strict. They insisted that the only way to save turtles was to have a very sophisticated device called a TED. And a TED, let me explain this, is a turtle excluder device. And the United States insisted on one particular kind of turtle excluder device. If you had that turtle excluder device in your net, then your shrimp can come into the United States. If you don't have a turtle excluded device as they specify, then your shrimp cannot come in. And that was too narrow-minded, and they lost the case because of that, and we won. But it set a precedent. From now onwards, you can impose environmental barriers to trade. And the World Trade Court will monitor it. So let me come to something called RED II, the European Union's Renewable Energy Directive number 2. That is a palm oil killer, we have heard. RED II, well, let me explain how the theory behind it. The theory behind using palm for biofuel is that you get carbon neutrality at the end. For your emissions from using the biofuel, you get plants being planted which will absorb CO2. So you burn fuel, you produce CO2, but you plant palm to produce the biofuel, and the plant absorbs the CO2. So in theory, biofuels are good, they are carbon neutral, or in plain simple language, they're just less polluting. So what the European Union did was to push biofuel until they realized that actually the assumption is not so watertight. What if to plant the palm tree we had deforestation? What if, just if? What if we had deforestation? Then it won't be carbon neutral. Now, what has happened in the European Union is that they have passed a directive called the Renewable Energy Directive number 2, and that's RED II. What RED II does now is to say to European countries, just because you use biofuel, say from Malaysia, does not mean that you meet your clean emission targets, because every EU country has been given a target for clean emissions. In the past, if you use biofuel, you get to meet the target. Now, because there are fears about deforestation, you do not get to meet your target simply because you're using Malaysian biofuel. And you don't get subsidized for using Malaysian biofuel. Nobody is stopping Malaysian biofuel from entering the European Union. Nobody is stopping anyone from buying Malaysian biofuel. But the incentive for buying Malaysian biofuel was removed by RED II. It has been suggested that maybe we should just sue the European Union. Now, this kind of case is very sensitive. It is very political, because the thing about suing people is that you have to make sure that you're going to win. And not only do you want to make sure that you're going to win, even if you lose, you do not want there to be a reputational cost for bringing the lawsuit. A lawsuit such as this puts us in some danger of falling on the wrong side of the environmental sustainability debate. We are going to have the hypothesis, even the allegation, that palm oil is linked to, in some way, to deforestation tested out in open court. And when you test things out in open court, you're not quite sure what's going to come out in open court. So until we are very clear about what's going on in the palm industry, and we're very clear about all the knock-on effects, we may want to be a bit more careful. Doesn't mean we won't have a case, but my sense of it is that the European Union is on the right side of the moral debate on sustainability, and so we'll have to work quite hard to reverse that situation, that imbalance. Let me come up with two quick examples, and I'll close this section on compliance. I think you get the general idea about compliance now. You will have to comply with tariff requirements, and then there can be very sophisticated non-tariff requirements which are linked to our theme today, which is sustainability. Brexit. This is a recent case involving lawyers I work with out of Europe. A particular country was concerned that preferential tariffs received under a developing country program, something called a generalized system of preferences, that such preferences from the EU will no longer be available when the United Kingdom, if and when the United Kingdom exits the European Union. And you would have thought that's quite a concern. Well, happily in that case, the answer was the EU after Brexit will impose zero duty. What's the moral of this story? We don't even know if Brexit is going to happen. You're all reading the newspapers, but we already know what tariffs will be applied. And that's a compliance issue. And you may need to know that. Final case, this is very sensitive. You've all heard of Huawei's troubles in the United States, so I begin to move towards the current global situation. You have all heard of Sabrina Meng's extradition trial going on in Canada. That case is a compliance case. The charge is evasion of the United States sanctions on Iran under a piece of legislation known as the IPA in the United States, the International Emergency Exports Act. The problem with that case doesn't have to do with sanctions from the United States alone. So the United States imposes sanctions on Iran. The allegation is that Ms. Meng was seeking to evade those sanctions. The problem was that in investigating the case, the United States authorities sought the cooperation of a bank, the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation. HSBC cooperated with American investigators, apparently, but in doing so, it falls foul of something that's very new. It's called China's Corporate Social Credit System. And you're wondering what that is. What it means is that the Chinese government is compiling a list of unreliable entities, just like unreliable people. Some companies are just unreliable. If you become an unreliable entity, then I would say that your business model in China may be affected. Now, in this case, and I'm giving this very sensitive example quite openly because HSBC became caught in the crosswinds of incompatible compliance requirements. And I think this is something that was alluded to by the Malaysian Prime Minister recently about how the world seems to be split into two regimes at the moment. There are almost two different sets of international economic regimes. American law requires you to do that which Chinese law would discourage you from doing. You will begin to see more cases as we get into a very similitude of a Cold War situation where you are required to do something by one set of laws and you're prohibited from doing that same thing by another set of laws. And the example I can think of is European blocking legislation on American Iranian sanctions. You're prohibited from complying with American law, and we might be getting to that kind of situation. Anyway, let me talk about the global situation and try and wrap up and make some sense of what I have been trying to say myself. A very well-known Malaysian, a former minister, once said to me, in Hong Kong. I admire Hong Kong. I admire Hong Kong because the animal spirits are very strong in Hong Kong. And he's a very educated man, so that's a reference to Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations, that phrase, the animal spirits. Well, that comes from a Malaysian. And though it be true that for many years we have stood for a developing country viewpoint and we have championed as a country various developing country causes, Malaysians are great believers in free trade. We believe in the free market. We believe in what Adam Smith calls that simple system of natural liberty, that freedom to trade is a part of the Malaysian psyche. It is for that reason that we embraced globalization. We embraced production fragmentation. We embraced supply chain manufacturing across Asia. We embraced the trade in parts. We look forward to the Internet of Things. And we certainly look forward to digital globalization. And today the national discussion seems to be, where do we go from here? But in the meantime, because we have embraced globalized production, we now face disruption caused by the Sino-US trade war. And the drop in Chinese exports just since February has been 3.2%. This will have ripple effects. I know that there is a lot of interest in trade in Malaysia at the moment because people have seen the trade figures and they're comparing the trade figures, our export figures, to the export figures last year. But of course, we all know that the export figures for all kinds of countries all over this planet are all down at the same time. And that is the proper benchmark. Let me tell you the good story, the good news to this story. There is good news here. There is a silver lining. The former deputy director at the National Economic Council in the United States, Mr. Trump's National Economic Council, gave an interview just some days ago on the 16th of October, where he said, you're getting to the point where the more tariffs the United States puts in place, eventually you're going to get to those tariff lines that hurt the United States more than they will hurt China, and we are now at that stage. I put it slightly differently in the same newspaper on the 3rd of October. I said both sides could do with a victory. There isn't a perfect trade deal. The deal just needs to be good enough. And that's roughly the position that we're in right now. So I do expect to see the two sides struggling to reach a deal because it makes no sense, increasingly less sense, for the United States to impose tariffs. And I think they know that. What has changed in the world? How do I make this really simple? When we came out of the Second World War, we turned our anger against foreign products into negotiated tariff numbers. Don't prohibit a foreign car from coming into your market, or foreign rice or foreign beef from coming into your market. Express your anger in terms of a tariff. Could be 100% tariff, that's okay. As long as you agree not to exceed 100%, and over several rounds of global trade negotiations, we'll negotiate down from 100%. At the same time, before 1995, whenever the United States felt that it was the victim of unfair trade, it would unilaterally impose a tariff hike under American legislation. In 1995, we created the World Trade Court, and the United States can no longer do that without being sued and found to have violated the law. So two things. We agreed in 1947 on tariff limits, and in 1995 we created a court to say when people have violated that rule. What Mr. Trump wants to do is to take us back to 1994, the year before the court was created, where he can impose tariffs unilaterally at will, and there will be no court by December because he has been blocking appointments to the court. And come December, there is no longer a quorum for the appellate body of the WTO to meet. And the question is why? Why has he done all of this? It goes to the theme we have today. It goes towards sustainability. It goes towards inclusiveness. Why? Because trade creates losers. The WTO is better at saving turtles than it is at saving jobs. China and the United States should have talked about saving jobs years ago. Secondly, Mr. Trump is not just concerned about jobs at home. He has concerns about China being more competitive unfairly, only unfairly, because of the way China is governed, because of the way its economy is run. And so when a trade dispute becomes a systemic conflict, when I start to say, actually the problem is how you run your country, then we have systemic friction. It is not just about tariffs, I'm wrapping up now. It is about sanctions. It is about scrutiny of Chinese investments. It is about talk even of delisting Chinese companies from the New York Stock Exchange. But we all know that the problem is not just a Chinese problem, it is now a global systemic problem. So what has caused this? Uneven globalization for years and the backlash against globalization, a failure in inclusiveness. What is our answer? One answer, as I've said before, a lot of compliance issues and trade barriers today are not in the form of tariffs. They are in the form of laws, they're in the form of regulations, they're in the form of non-tariff measures. One answer that we have been pursuing is to have free trade agreements where we address questions to do with rules, questions to do with compliance, questions to do with regulation, be it in relation to blood-based treatments in the future, in therapeutics, in biologics, or be it in the sphere of digital trade. And my message is a very simple one. Please, let us push ahead. Let us push ahead with our free trade agreements. Let us push ahead in the first instance, as Yang Muhammad, the minister, said earlier, with the RCEP. And in his case, I have, even in Hong Kong, been reading the astonishingly harsh coverage in the Malaysian press. To be perfectly honest, I'm shocked when your own press is briefed against you by the negotiators on the other side and you're getting hit by your own press. That is quite extraordinary to watch. That's what I've seen in recent weeks. So let me just close with a story. You have a United States auto manufacturer. It is thinking of manufacturing in India, in Chennai. There is a Singapore-United States free trade agreement, and that free trade agreement is used for the American auto manufacturer to establish its presence in Singapore, creating jobs. It uses banks in Singapore to raise money for an 80% equity infusion into a plant in Chennai. That benefits from a separate Mauritian-style double taxation treaty, whereby because Singapore doesn't impose capital gains tax, the 80% equity infusion in India is free from capital gains tax. The plant in India is protected by investment protections in a Singapore-India free trade agreement or an ASEAN-India free trade agreement. Don't quote me on that, I need to go take a look, but let's just say. The Indian plant will not manufacture the whole car by itself. The parts will be made in Thailand, which are exported to India under the India-Thailand FTA. But not enough manufacturing occurs in Thailand to make the parts sufficiently made in Thailand. But thankfully, the FTA, the ASEAN-India FTA, allows the design of the parts in Malaysia to count towards the rule of content requirements in order for the parts to enter India tariff-free. The car is manufactured as a wholly built-up car in India, and under an India-Japan free trade agreement, the car is exported to Japan. That shows you the combination of kinds of treaties we may require, and the part that government plays, and the part which government has played, and what things like the RCEP mean for us? And most importantly, apart from tax agreements, when we talk about investment agreements, what are they for? The best way to jump tariff walls is to jump right over the wall where Huawei becomes a good United Kingdom, a good English company, just like Honda in the past became a good American company, just like Malaysian palm oil plantations may be found in Indonesia, in order to avoid the difficulties we are facing with the Indians these days. And that's an investment issue. So let me just wrap up. Thank you very much. My points are, we need to pay attention to compliance. You may want to pay attention to Trump tariffs, and that's always in the press, but pay attention to Brexit. The WTO is moribund. We need to have the RCEP, and we need to maybe think about the CPTPP as FTAs at some point. No ifs, no buts. Cases are different politically. One palm oil case may be more sensitive than another one. Your palm oil case with Europe is very different from your palm oil case with India. Richard Cobden once called trade God's diplomacy. De Tocqueville called it the natural enemy of all violent passions. Frédéric Bastiat said, when goods don't cross borders, soldiers wail. I say if we don't practice sustainable, inclusive trade, diplomacy will be fraught, violent passions will be unleashed, and trade will be diminished. My message to you is that in the future, I don't know how good we will be at making flying cars, for example. But we know what we're good at making. We're good at agriculture, we're good at aquaculture, we're good in the oil and gas industry. Remember this, the two shrimp may look the same, but one shrimp sells and the other doesn't, because the message that's being sold is that one shrimp is good for the planet. It's a sustainable shrimp. The other one is not. Can you not imagine the time when Malaysian products, the same products that we are good at making or planting or cultivating and selling, are being bought by the world because we are known as the greenest manufacturer and agricultural exporter and the greenest and most reliable and most responsible economy on the planet. We would still be making the same things. And who in this country objects to that? I can't think of anyone. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Lim, and please remain on stage, Prof. Lim. Thank you. I would like to call upon Mr. Muhammad Mustafa Abdulaziz, Deputy CEO of MATRADE for Export Acceleration, to present a certificate of appreciation to Prof. Lim. Thank you, Mr. Mustafa and Prof. Lim. May I invite you back to your seats? All right, ladies and gentlemen, our program continues with the first session entitled Opportunities for Growth with MATRADE's Network of Global Trade Officers. For your information, MATRADE has 46 overseas trade officers, which is led by either a Trade Commissioner, TC, or a Marketing Officer, MO. TCs are stationed for approximately 4 years and are sent on a rotation basis. Today, we are honored to have TCs that have recently returned from their respective stations to share with us export opportunities in their coverage. For this session, we have 3 former TCs from Almaty, Ho Chi Minh City, and Yangon. Later, at 2 p.m., we have 4 former TCs from Chengdu, Rotterdam, Seoul, and Tokyo. We hope that you will stay with us till the end. And now, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Adli Haikal Abdul Hanif, former TC of MATRADE Almaty. Mr. Haikal was posted to MATRADE Almaty in 2015 as a TC and is now attached to the Construction and Business Services section of MATRADE. Let us welcome Mr. Adli Haikal. Next up, we have Mr. Faisal Izani Masto, former TC of MATRADE Ho Chi Minh City. Mr. Faisal left for his posting to MATRADE Ho Chi Minh City as a TC in 2014. There, he was tasked in opening new markets for Malaysian businesses, especially those active in automotive, ICT, and the infrastructure sector. Let us welcome Mr. Faisal Izani. Our third speaker is Mr. Muhammad Zahiruddin Nordin, former TC of MATRADE Yangon. Mr. Zahir was posted to MATRADE Yangon in Myanmar as a TC in 2016. Currently, he is the Special Officer to the CEO of MATRADE. Let us welcome Mr. Zahir. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a WhatsApp number for you to post any questions to our former TCs. The number for you to WhatsApp is on the screen right now. So, shall we have our first presentation from Mr. Haikal, former TC of MATRADE Almaty.
Thank you, Diane. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. I'm very excited this morning to see MATRADE Hall is filled up to the end with all Malaysian companies eager to gain market updates and build business networks while assessing potential areas of export. Without further ado, allow me to start my presentation with sharing two interesting pictures. If I may ask, what do you see from here? For me, this is a picture of an exciting, young and developing country which is now open for international business cooperation, which is Kazakhstan. To further deliberate about Kazakhstan, let us take a quick glance of this beautiful country. Kazakhstan is the main economic power amongst the 5 CIS countries. Located in the heart of Central Asia, Kazakhstan acts as a business gateway which connects Asia and Europe, with a total population of 600 million people. It is a landlocked country bordering with China, Russia, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan. Actually, Kazakhstan is not that far from Malaysia. It's only 7 hours of direct flight from KLIA to Almaty city. By land size, it is the 9th largest country in the world. It has 14 states within this huge country. However, most of the business transaction happens in the 2 main cities, which is Almaty, which is the traditional trading city of Kazakhstan, and the next one is Nur Sultan, that is the capital city of Kazakhstan, located about 1,000 kilometers away from Almaty. Due to the massive land size area, do take into consideration of traveling time should you come to visit the country for any business meetings or site visit. The country climate is on the extreme side. If you were to visit the country during winter, you could feel the temperature go as low as minus 40 degrees, which is something a bit hard for some of us to accommodate. However, during summer, you can still enjoy its warm, steamy weather, enjoying at the poolside with an average temperature of 34 to 37 Celsius degree. The country population in 2018 stood at 18 million. Interestingly, 64% of the population ages between 15 to 64 years old. Previously, under the USSR, about 80% of the population speaks Russian. However, not to worry, as the young generation now has good exposure of business in English language. But anyway, should you have any problem, there's always Google Translate to assist you. So Kazakhstan, the main produce of the country is focusing on oil and gas and mining, as it contributes up to 70 to 80% of the country GDP, followed by agriculture. In terms of world ranking, Kazakhstan ranked at number 12, world largest oil reserve, which is about 30 billion barrel, equivalent to 40 years of supply. In terms of producing wheat, Kazakhstan stands at number 10 as the world's largest producer, with a total production of 14 million metric tons in 2018. The country is a net importing country. To keep up with its growing local demand, Kazakhstan maintains a healthy trading cooperation with main of its trading partner, which is Russia, China, Turkey, Netherlands, and Italy. And from the Asian perspective, the main trading partner is Vietnam, followed by Malaysia. Kazakhstan also subscribed to international treaties, thus ensuring highest degree of doing business and confidence to all its trading partners. I believe by now, about 20% of the audience already developed some keen interest on doing business with Kazakhstan. To further entice your appetite, allow me to share with some of the main observations made by MATRADE Almaty office. In 2015, the world economy was badly hit by the drop of oil price. Kazakhstan, being highly dependent on oil and gas industry, was no exception. As a result, the government has developed a strategy called Kazakhstan 2050 strategy. It is a national strategy that focuses heavily on economics, social, and political reforms that, in short, will position Kazakhstan to become among the top 30 trading nations in the world by 2050. One of the key elements of Strategy 2050 is to diversify its local industry, moving away from oil and gas industry and focus on high value-added manufacturing activities, knowledge-based economy, services, and export-oriented industry. One of the key elements that the government is focusing in achieving this strategy is by becoming more business-friendly as well as efficient in inviting more FDI into the country. More new economic zone has been developed throughout the country, and also the Kazakhstan government has undergone a huge privatization program whereby it tries to decentralize their control in some of its major companies throughout the country. Kazakhstan government also understands that the fundamental elements to sustain the country's long-term strategy is to have its people trained and also upgrade. Moving forward, the country has developed a few capacity building programs that has been introduced to its students, workers, as well as professionals. Now that we have some idea about Kazakhstan as a country, allow me to share some trade data between Kazakhstan and Malaysia. Listed here are the top 10 imports of Kazakhstan from Malaysia. I rank it by the highest, which is palm oil, down to electrical machines. Let's take one for example. In 2018, Kazakhstan import of extract of coffee from Malaysia was valued at $11 million. 67% actually, to be exact, of Kazakhstan import extract of coffee came from Malaysia. And as you can see, Malaysia was ranked number 1 as Kazakhstan supplier. And within the Asian countries, our competitors is Thailand, which is ranked number 5. What I'm trying to show here is that this is one of the data sampling which MATRADE can help prepare and analyze for our Malaysian companies who are interested in exploring the market, not only Kazakhstan, but also other parts of the world. So please come do and visit us for further discussion. And again, let me remind you that Kazakhstan's huge potential lies in its role as a gateway that interconnects Asia and Europe. Moving forward, we would like to also share with you some data about market drivers in Kazakhstan. As mentioned earlier, Kazakhstan is blessed with huge oil and gas reserve, which is 8 times bigger than Malaysia. In 2019, the government of Kazakhstan has budgeted $44 billion for oil and gas industry development program. Most of these activities will be concentrated on its 2 main oil fields, which is Kashagan and Tengiz. Next is the power industry sector. Due to the country's huge land area, one of the main challenges that it has to face is to deliver stable power supply to fit the increasing demand of its both residential as well as industrial clients. For this, Kazakhstan has a long-term plan of renewal, modernization and construction of power grids throughout the nation. Between 2016 to 2030, it is estimated about $11 billion will be budgeted for this exercise. Being the gateway that connects Asia and Europe, Kazakhstan government foresee the importance of preparing and upgrading its local logistic industry. One of the main government-led initiatives is called Nurlizol program, which will interconnect with China One Belt One Road program. It is estimated that a budget of $9 billion will be allocated for logistic infrastructure programs. Another promising sectors for Malaysian companies is the engineering services. Kazakhstan government now is aggressively introducing programs to diversify and upgrade its local industry in terms of capacity as well as technology. And one of the options to fast-track this goal is through technology transfer with suitable country partners. It is estimated about, the market is about $14 billion, of which 80 to 85% is being imported. I believe by now, more than half of the audience can already visualize the business dynamics that Kazakhstan holds. One would be thinking, how best to take part in this new and interesting market? Well, MATRADE Almaty has outlined a few key success factors to guide interested Malaysian players. Number one is LCL or LTL shipments. Goods from Malaysia to Kazakhstan has to undergo a long and messy logistic process. Generally, our goods have to go through a few countries, change few mode of shipment before reaching its final destination. This adds unnecessary cost to our products, making it less competitive. To overcome this, MATRADE recommend our exporters to consider using LCL and LTL mode of shipment. Number two, high value-added products. Generally, Malaysian goods are expensive as compared to neighboring countries. This is basically due to the logistic cost. To minimize this issue, we recommend Malaysian companies to focus on high value-added products or services which has niche market and bigger margin to manage. Finding suitable local business partner always plays an important role to ensure your venture is a success. To minimize this hassle and risk, please work closely with MATRADE, as we can give you some leads and also send some second-hand information for you to analyze. Business dealing in this part of the world require long gestation period. However, Malaysian companies must not be discouraged. Thus, please plan regular visit to the market to develop networks as well as trust. 78% of Kazakhstan population have access to internet. Its young and emerging population is familiarizing with modern lifestyle, internet shopping, and other online services. Major business interaction are focusing on fashion, cosmetic, and food. We encourage Malaysian companies to take advantage of this by exploring the locally well-accepted e-business e-platforms such as eBay, OLX, and Kolesa. A better way to approach and take advantage of Kazakhstan market is by establishing a physical outfit in the local market. There are special incentive, tax relief, and other favorable conditions to welcome foreign investors. Goods and services produced in Kazakhstan are eligible to benefit from regional cooperation that connects 600 million people. Of course, should you decide to undertake the investment path, we seriously urge Malaysian companies to make use of the services provided by MATRADE in terms of market intelligence as well as business consultation. I strongly believe by now about 70% of the audience today have mentally secured of traveling to Kazakhstan by 2020. In short, doing business in Kazakhstan is doable. Before I end my presentation, allow me to share my last slide to give you some idea that who are the Malaysian entities that have presence in the country. During my 4-year service in Kazakhstan, I observed that a few Malaysians contemplating to spend time and money on this market. Do not worry, we highly recommend you to come visit the market, at least as a tourist, to explore the country, natural beauty, fantastic ski resort, warm people, beautiful ladies, handsome guys, of course. And with MATRADE assistance, you would return back to Malaysia with potential business lead as one of your best souvenirs. With that, I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haikal. Up next, we have Mr. Faisal Izani, former TC of MATRADE Ho Chi Minh City. Let us welcome Mr. Faisal.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good morning. First of all, I would like to thank all of you for your presence today and for supporting our program. It is actually, I feel very honored and also excited at the same time to be given this opportunity to share with you all my experience and knowledge throughout my 5-year assignment in Vietnam. And I really hope that all of you can benefit out of it. So now, what comes to your mind when someone mentions Vietnam? Of course, Vietnam is famous for its coffee. In fact, Vietnam is the second largest coffee exporter in the world, just after Brazil. And at the same time, Vietnam is also famous for its motorcycles. They have the 4th largest population of motorcycles in the world, after China, India, and Indonesia. And do you also know that one of the 4 Vietnamese people has the family name Nguyen? And recently you might know that Vietnam has a very famous bikini airline called Vietjet, who operates daily flight from Ho Chi Minh City to Kuala Lumpur. But what I want to highlight to you today is that Vietnam is one of the most promising and one of the fastest growing economy in Asia. Over the last 10 years, they have recorded an average growth rate of 6.2% over the last 10 years. And it is a very important and also strategic market for Malaysian companies. So moving on, let's take a quick look on the market. In Vietnam, they have 2 major cities, Hanoi in the north and Ho Chi Minh City in the south. And the country has 95.5 million population. The land size is similar to Malaysia, 331,000 square kilometers, which means that Vietnam has 3 times more density in terms of population. And in 2018, Vietnam recorded a GDP growth of 7.08%. And now the GDP per capita stood at $2,587 US. In terms of GDP composition, agriculture contributes 8.7% of the economy, while industry and construction constitute 48.6%, and finally services at 42.7%. In terms of ranking of ease of doing business, Vietnam is ranked at number 69, and as you know, probably you know that Malaysia is ranked number 15. So for 2018, Vietnam exported 214 billion US dollars in terms of merchandise and attracted an FDI inflow of 35.5 billion US dollar. So due to the strong economic growth and also FDI inflow, the GDP per capita and the middle income population of the country have increased. When the people have higher income, it also affects in terms of change of the lifestyle of the people. And due to a strong FDI inflow of the economy into the economy, the landscape of the economy has also become very diverse, covering high-tech manufacturing as well as high-value services. Now, let me share with you some of the potential sectors in Vietnam. And first, I would like to cover on automotive. Currently, the total industry volume in Vietnam is valued at 350,000. But you have to take note that it has tripled over the last 5 years. And the value of auto part imports is currently valued at 3.5 billion US dollars, which constitute 85% of the demand. However, the local companies can actually only supply 10 to 12% in the supply chain. And these are mainly due to these are actually for low-end products such as rubber tires and also glass products. Because the market is so small and the output is also small, for the auto assemblers, it is more viable for them to import the products rather than having its own local supply chain. So this is an opportunity for Malaysian companies to fill in the gap. And in addition to supplying to auto assemblers, there is also opportunity for Malaysian companies to supply in the aftermarket segment. As at the moment, there is the number of cars or vehicles in the market is rising. And in addition to that, Vietnam has also embarked its national car project called VinFast. VinFast had already launched 3 car models and 1 electric scooter. But in the pipeline, they will be developing 7 more new car models across all segments with a targeted production of 500,000 units per year. So these are the areas for Malaysian companies in the auto parts and components to make its move into the market. Next, I would like to talk about the beauty and personal care sector. Currently, the market size stood at 1.2 billion US dollars, and it is growing steadily at a rate of 8.6% annually. And however, 90% of the consumption is actually being imported. Malaysia is only ranked at number 8 with just 4% share. And the strong growth in the sector is actually driven by urbanization, by rising income of the people, effective advertising and promotion undertaken by the industry players there, and of course due to change in the lifestyle. And in terms of sub-segment of the beauty and personal care, strong growth is actually seen in sub-segment like oral care, skin care, hair care, bath and shower, as well as color cosmetics. So due to the expansion in the demand, it is also the right time for Malaysian companies in the area of beauty and personal care to look into the Vietnam market. Next is the renewable energy sector. Energy demand is expected to increase 6% annually due to rapid industrialization. And under the Vietnam National Master Plan, the Vietnam government has plans to triple its installed capacity from 48 gigawatts to 130 gigawatts by 2030. But this will involve an investment of more than 150 billion US dollars. So as conventional power generation involve high investment and at the same time pose environmental issues, renewable energy is seen as the optimal and sustainable choice. It is also one of the key sectors, key promoted sectors by the Vietnam government, whereby the Vietnam government provide a lot of favorable incentives and also business condition for investors to go into the market. So therefore, opportunities arise for Malaysian companies to export and invest in this sector, including in the area of solar, wind and biomass, which currently only stood at 2.1%. And in addition to what I have mentioned, for the conventional source, there are also opportunities in the area of related areas such as for power distribution and transmission, as well as supply of technology and equipment. So moving on, I've just shared only 3 sectors, but please don't be disappointed if your sectors is not mentioned, simply because opportunities in Vietnam cuts across many sectors, all the sectors in fact, whereby they have very strong growth for consumer-related products as well as industrial products and services. So moving on, there are many factors to be successful in the market, but for this session, I will focus on 3. The first one is it is very important for you to have a reliable business partner to support your business in the country. This includes a partner that have the know-who and know-how in the market. And secondly, it is also equally important for an exporter to understand the market. This includes in terms of market size, in terms of competition, in terms of pricing, and in terms of the business culture and environment, because this will help to guide you in positioning your product well in the market. And last but not least, Professor Lim spent a lot of time on compliance earlier, is compliance to the laws and regulations that govern a certain product or sector, simply because the Vietnam authorities have no mercy on you in their own land. So that's among the key success factors that I will touch on. But the best part is that all these key success factors can actually be retrieved or can be supported by MATRADE Overseas Office, including the one in Ho Chi Minh City. So it is one of our main role and responsibilities to support you by providing or sharing our database of potential buyers and importers, as well as the market intelligence that we have prepared in the form of reports and product market study, as well as information or market access requirement. So these are the areas that we can support and share with all of you. So moving on, these are some of the Malaysian companies that have made inroad and successful in the Vietnam market. Currently, just to share with you, Malaysia is the 8th largest investor in Vietnam, with more than 500 investment projects valued at more than 13 billion US dollars. And some have made inroads as early as in the 90s, but some that I have the opportunity to support are like GTC, who are a provider of security and smart home solution. They are now actively providing their solution to property developers as well as manufacturing facilities in Vietnam. Another example is CMC Engineering. They are involved in providing engineering services for the railway industry. And currently, they have already undertaken communication and signaling services for Ho Chi Minh City Metro Rail 1, and at the same time, looking or pursuing more projects in the market. And last but not least is Ingress and also Deloitte, who are auto parts manufacturer, who are actively engaging or pursuing opportunities with VinFast. So before I end my presentation, let me leave you the context of my successor for further inquiries and support. And at the same time, I also will be glad Looking forward to answer the your questions during the Q&A session in a bit. So with that, xin cảm ơn or thank you in Vietnamese for your kind attention.
Thank you, Mr. Faisal. And up next, we have Mr. Zahiruddin, former TC of MATRADE Yangon. Let us welcome Mr. Zahir.
Aluming lawa, Chinona Mizahiva, Matri, Wondama, Tuyada, Wantabade. Okay. Assalamualaikum and very good morning to everyone. My name is Zahir. Just call me Zahir. We have two Zahiruddin here actually. So I'm easy to be called Zahir, and I was the trade commissioner in MATRADE Yangon. Okay, so today I think my two officers, my two colleagues just now have shared about the market, about their market. So now I'll be talking about Myanmar. And who knows what these photos is? This is actually Bagan. Now it's already enlisted under the UNESCO as one of the World UNESCO site. So congratulations to Myanmar for this. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for those who have no idea where Myanmar is, or maybe a slight idea where is Myanmar located, it's actually located there at the screen. It's at the west part of ASEAN. It's the largest land size country in ASEAN. Okay, and that's the new flag of Myanmar after the new government took over. Okay. All right. So about Myanmar, some people has no idea what is actually the market is all about and how does it look like. So when I see Myanmar, some people ask me what is actually the difference between Myanmar and other CMLV like Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. So this is basically how the Burmese looks like on their daily life. This is actually by the roadside. At the city center, we call it downtown Yangon, okay, and the yellow paste on the face is actually called tanaka. It actually comes from a tree bark, grinded, and then the powder, it becomes like bedak sejuk, okay, and some people mistaken it as a kunyit, where I think kunyit, if it's on the face, then it won't like go away for 1 week, I think. So no, it's not kunyit, but it's a tanaka, we call it, okay. All right, so this is how Yangon skyline looks like now and how it was back then. So you can see that even the market, some people think that it's a little bit traditional, but now it's already in the verge of like transformation, where skyscrapers has already been built. And yeah, you can see that the Pan Pacific there is already been erected and already in full operation since 2018. Okay. Okay, a little bit deeper about Myanmar. The population is pretty much double the size of Malaysians. It should be around 52 to 53 million population as of now. And the land area as well, it's double the size of Malaysia, combined Peninsula and Sabah and Sarawak. Okay. And like Malaysia, we have Putrajaya and we have Kuala Lumpur. Also, in Myanmar, we have Naypyidaw as the capital administration for the government, which is located there. There's a small star there at the, Mandalay, the orange state. Okay, that's the location where the Naypyidaw is. And Yangon is actually the pin drop there, if you can see at the screen. So the distance between Yangon and Naypyidaw is approximate about 500 kilometers away. So do plan out if you are going to venture into Myanmar, that there are two places that you can go and have a business interaction with, okay? And of course, the GDP growth, Myanmar has been called as the last frontier of ASEAN market. So if you can see in the 2015, the trend is moving a little bit on the verge of 6% growth per year. So this shows that the government of Myanmar is actually really focusing for the country to expand and to be developed. Okay, and the GDP per capita is about 1,500 US dollar. Okay, and as for Malaysian, I think now we are about 9,000 US dollar. So okay, next. And yeah, to those who have not been to Myanmar, the language spoken is basically English and also Burmese in general. But of course, they have their own ethnicity, their major ethnicity, the one on the left side of the screen. You can see the white is Burman, and then Rakhine, Shan, Karen, Chin, Mon, and others. So they have their own set of language as well. But 90% of business is being held in Yangon. So Burmese and English, and sometimes don't be shocked when you even speak Bahasa, they will just like, apa khabar, saya rindu Malaysia, like that. So they are not stranger to us. Okay, in fact, there are about 800,000 of Burmese here, including, those who are under the refugees here in Malaysia, and those, of course, are working legally here as well. Okay, and about language as well, just now I think our speaker have talked about communication. In Myanmar, they are not using WhatsApp. They are not even familiar with WhatsApp. So those companies who came to Myanmar, I will advise them, okay, you need to install Viber instead. So Line and WeChat can be used because they are major trading partner to China. But of course, in the Myanmar itself, in Yangon, people are using Viber over WhatsApp. Sometimes you need to teach them to use WhatsApp instead. Okay? And the median age of this population is just about 28 years old. So it's a very young population. So it's up and coming, and people are eager to learn new things in Myanmar. And of course, when we look at the younger generation, the household income is also increasing for these people. So the spending power of these people are also increasing as well. So there are sizable market for you to capture in this market. Okay, and the currency. Okay, who can mention the one KYAT? How does it sounds like? Sorry. I heard someone says Kiat. Okay, it's actually no. The pronunciation is actually Chat. Okay, Chat. And what the most common name you will find in Myanmar as well is actually KYAW, which when I was just arrived in Myanmar, I always go for a meeting, and then I go and shake hand and then I say, hello, Mr. Kiao, but it's actually Mr. Cho. So yeah, these are the things that you need to look into when you go and interact with the Burmese people there. And then, the nuance and how you pronounce this is actually, the small thing that will trigger them to be interested with you more, okay? And okay, it's a gateway to China Silk Road, of course, because it's just behind China. They have a border trade gate at the Kunming. So even from the Rakhine state, they even have a pipeline of gas which already been given to the government of China for the lease of 50 years. To extract the gas there, and then all the way up, it's more than 500 kilometers pipeline all the way to China. Okay, so it's a very strategic gateway to China. All right, and flight duration is of course it's relatively very near, only less than 3 hours. External trade comprises of 45% of its GDP. So they are really looking for products as the local industries can't supply to the market enough. Okay, so I'll move to the next slide. Okay, this is for the financial year 2008-2019 as of June. The total trade of Myanmar is just about 24.7 billion. It's relatively small, but it's also increasing as well, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Okay, for the opportunities for investment in Myanmar, if you can see on the right side of the screen, 2010, there's only a few markets sectors available in Myanmar, whereas the colors has already changed to other like manufacturing, oil and gas, power and real estate as well. So, and others are including agriculture, livestock and fisheries. So some of the companies who came to Myanmar to MATRADE and requested us to connect with the local business people, these are the things that they come to invest into Myanmar, and the countries is welcoming with an open arm for Malaysian as well. Okay, these are the top 5 major export nations to Myanmar. Okay, petroleum products, chemical and chemical products, processed food. So what I like to stress here is that processed food from Malaysia is actually very warmly welcome to Myanmar, and then they knows that for the fact we have our mami who's been set up in Myanmar for at least over 20 years, and mami noodle has been the champion of the instant noodle for like 20 years there in Myanmar. We don't know about this fact last time. And palm oil, of course, and machinery equipment, they always take this from the Penang port and go bring it back to Yangon port. Okay, what to consider? Okay, the local legal framework in Myanmar, it's a little bit vague. We have our local companies, Malaysian companies who's involved in this field that we can introduce to you, who work closely with us, like VDB Loy, who is a brand in Myanmar, but it's actually run by Malaysian. And also we have Zico Law and JLPW as well, who have always been assisting our office. Availability of the skilled and talented workforce, some says that it's very cheap there in Myanmar, but the skilled and talented workforce, it's a bit costly there in Myanmar. Just bear in mind, okay, when you are coming into Myanmar market. And high land prices equivalent to a high rental for offices and residents, but it's coming down now. Don't be afraid. You can always work from the virtual office as well. It's available. And please, we can also leverage on the border trade, because a lot of product from Myanmar comes from Thailand and China, and some of our product even comes through Thailand to Myanmar. Okay, and funding and technical assistance is something that you can consider when you are going into Myanmar market. They will also be looking at this, and the surrounding infrastructure. Let's say if you are investing in an outskirt area, then these are the things that maybe you need to build your own road, or the power supply and all. But that don't deter the investor to come in, because in the long run it will give you your ROI. Okay, and also generator and water filter cost if you are coming into the Myanmar market. And look for a trustworthy, genuine local partner. This is where we come into assistance. So please do not just come to us when you already stumble upon some difficulties. But we are warmly welcome you guys at any time, okay, to look for a good partner with us, MATRADE. And like Almaty, we are also a market where we require LCL, local container load. Okay, and also cash-based society. Your credit card can be used everywhere in Myanmar. Okay, so bring enough cash. US dollar must be crisp. Tak ada conteng. Ada conteng, then it will reduce your transaction, your exchange. And also, it's a subtropical climate weather. It's not like Malaysia. They have 3 months of rain, 3 months of cold, and 3 months of hot season. And hot season can go up to 50-degree real feel, 50 degree Celsius. And cold season maybe about 18, 16, okay, and in Yangon. Okay, so because this is a very emerging market. So I would like to share, these are our brands that has presence in Myanmar. Okay, we have Anakku, Old Town, Manhattan Fish Market, T-Life is just recently opened. Mary Brown, we have more than 10 branches. And also VNC under the Padini, the shoes. Okay. Malaysia brands in Myanmar, we have of course Mr. Potato, and we have Kraft, Old Town coffee as well. And these are Julie's and Hapsang biscuits that's available on the shelf. Okay, and I've been warned, yeah, I talk a lot, I'm sorry. So bear with me, but you can still chat with me outside at the clinic there. And okay, before this, the handsome guy over there is the one who replacing me. Here is Mr. Azhar. Okay, please do not shy away from contacting our companies. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Zahir. Thank you, Mr. Haikal. Thank you, Mr. Faisal, and also Mr. Zahir. Ladies and gentlemen, we actually received many messages, many questions through our WhatsApp. However, we do not have enough time to continue with our Q&A session. But do not worry, our former TCs will be at the trade clinics outside of this hall. So please take the opportunity to meet them, approach them, and they will be very happy to assist you. Right, former TCs? Okay, so thank you very much once again to our former TCs. Ladies and gentlemen, next up on our agenda is a panel discussion entitled Unraveling the Path to Success in Export Leadership. The moderator for this session is Mr. Kamarul Bahrain Harun, Deputy Editor-in-Chief of Astro Awani. Mr. Kamarul is a multiple award-winning TV journalist, editor and anchor in Malaysia with 23 years of experience in reporting and producing content for news and current affairs. Let us welcome our moderator, Mr. Kamarul Bahrain Harun. We have 4 panelists for this session. First up, Ms. Lee Pang, Executive Director of Body Basics Manufacturing, Sdn Bhd. After more than 10 years of working with various multinational companies, she moved into the plastic manufacturing and gained experience in the fields of production planning. Now, Body Basics have penetrated into Australia, New Zealand, ASEAN countries, and many more. Let us put our hands together for Ms. Lee Pang. Up next, we have Mr. Hamidi Maulud, President and CEO of Ingress Industrial Thailand Public Company Limited. Mr. Hamidi specializes in project management, developing strategies, cost management, and change management. Let us welcome Mr. Hamidi. Our third panelist, Yang Berbahagia Datuk Fong Wei Kuang, Managing Director of JF Microtechnology Sdn Bhd. Datuk Fong started his career at Preston Corporation Sdn Bhd in 1980 and has held sales and marketing positions for various companies throughout the years. Let us welcome Yang Berbahagia Datuk Fong. And last but not least, our fourth panelist, Mr. Hendik Tan Ek Pew, Export Manager of Kimanis Food Industries Sdn Bhd. Mr. Hendik is instrumental in steering the export expansion of the company. Kimanis currently exports to more than a dozen countries now. Let us welcome Mr. Hendik Tan Ek Pew. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, the WhatsApp number for you to post any questions will be on the screen shortly. Mr. Kamarul, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, pretty moderator, MC. That's why they give me, I'm old. So she looks young and beautiful. But I'm old enough to be here with you because I've been discussing SME and export since the first day I became a journalist. So, pertama kali saya nak ucapkan tahniah kepada MATRADE dan juga anda semua. You guys are the stars. I'm here because don't tell the politicians, sebab Datuk Daryl dah tak ada. I actually love entrepreneurs and exporters more. It's just that politics is so strong in this country, so sometimes you see many of them on Astro Awani. But actually, statistics shows Astro Awani has shown more entrepreneurs, more SMEs, and more exporters than any number of politicians in Malaysia. So please give a big round of applause to you and to me. I don't know how to speak Thai, Myanmar. I'm just a sawah padi boy from the rice bowl of Perlis. So saya nak tanya, apa abang? Orang Perlis ada? Any Perlisian here? I'm so proud to see a representative inside the official brochure for NED of a cooperative from Perlis, because the title is Sustainability and Inclusiveness. So if you only help the biggest state in Malaysia and do not help the smallest state, we're not inclusive. So congratulations. But I'm going to just welcome my 4 great panelists today. It brings tears to my eyes every time I have to represent Malaysia overseas. I'm not a prime minister. I'm not a TC. Now I have a new mnemonics, trade commissioner. But sometimes a journalist is the only representative of Malaysia at international events and also in certain places. 4 years now, Astro Awani has been at the World Economic Forum in Davos, given accreditation to be inside the forum. Before this, only MITI, MIDA, MOF, PM, DPM, ministers can go inside. Journalists like us, we have to stand in queue. Only 1,500 media is allowed in. So for the last 4 years, after 5 years of working, we are inside. Trust me, I have interviewed even global SMEs, Fortune 500 companies, Malaysian products, Malaysian innovation is as good as any there are out there. But we need to be better. So 4 mentors, role models are with us on stage today. And I'm going to go and ask this question straight. Inclusivity also includes gender. I don't know why MATRADE only give me 1 rose, 3 thorns, but I'm a thorn also, so 4 thorns. So never mind, we will be inclusive in terms of qualitatively. So we're going to go to the only lady in the room first. Because you know why? Body Basics might not be a household name, but most of their product to their clients are used by many, if not all of you. Sabun ke, shampoo ke, tak mau nyamuk gigit ke, insect repellents, all these things. Dozens of countries, if you look at the map of where they export, it covers Europe until New Zealand. Enough said. But I've been in journalism long enough to know, if you only sell statistics, maybe you get less than 10% traction. So I'm going to sell this to you. Macam mana daripada orang makan gaji, you know, working from just a clerk in a company, if I'm not mistaken in Shah Alam, go up over 16 years to be a manager, and suddenly someone who just started something came to her and say, hey, come join me lah, something like that. And this guy had no track record, also was a salaried worker before, quit to work in his father's hardware store and turn it into a hardware, you know, warehouse. Suddenly went to her and said, I want you to be the #1 employee. So that's the story of the only rose in the thorn area, Saudari Lee Pang, the executive director of Body Basics, because the founder wanted her so much. Never mind lah, you take some shares lah. So now that the company is selling more than 50 million a year, so imagine what her shares are worth. So I think you are already a multi-millionaire, but many here wants to be millionaire. So can you share the story of not only being a salaried worker, but you're part entrepreneur, because you joined a new formation from nothing, and you even accepted a contract as low as what, 700, 3,000 at that time? So can you share the story of that pain to first build something and then go for export? Because sometimes we look at export, but many people here would ask, what we have, is it okay or not? How do we build it? So please share the journey of Body Basics. Maybe you throw some glamour names lah, then they know lah, you know, the soap, the facial cleanser that they use maybe are from your manufacturing line.
Good morning. My name is Li Pang. I'm now the Executive Director of Body Basics. As Encik Kamaru mentioned, maybe a lot of you may not know Body Basics, but if I tell you the brand that we are producing, then you will know. For Malaysian brands, we are producing just now Anaku, and then it's also diapers, Purine. All these products are actually produced out of Body Basics. And we also have an export market. We also supply to Coles, even Hong Kong Dairy Farm, Guardian, all these private label, as well as Tesco. This is what we are doing now. We also have multinational brand. We do for Lion, Shukubuzur, and we are going to do for Unilever as well. So this is what we have done. And we started in 1995. As Encik Kamaru mentioned, I was working with a multinational company before I joined Body Basics. And at that time, because I think cosmetic is going to be a GMP, you need to be GMP certified before you can even start manufacturing. So these investors is my MD, and he's a very nice person, and he trusts me. That's how we started the business. And it started from zero, and until now we are more than, I think we are going to reach combined, going to be 100 million business.
At first, none of you, Mr. Ho Yu Pan ke, you ke, nobody have ever done personal care before.
No, they are in actually hardware business.
So tak susah ke? It's not difficult, isn't it?
Sangat susah. In fact, the first business, we started, because we don't own brand, and we actually started as an OEM. So we have the manufacturing facility, but we don't have products. So when the customer come, we actually need to do a mock-up, you know, just buy some empty packaging and then do some blending. So when the customer, we even have to time. When the customer walk in, then we start a demonstration. That's how we started, and it was not easy.
Okay, I'm going to link it to export. But first, before you export, you must have capacity. So most of SMEs will want to start with local capacity first. Lesser stringent requirements and whatever, right? But if you get MNCs, that's better. But multinational want referrals. They want what have you done, who were your clients. If you just started, just like if you just started and go to banks, they don't want to give you loans also. So you cannot start with an MNC. How did you get locals to be on your client list?
Because of my background, I actually used to work for the biggest contract manufacturer for personal care. Now it's called LF Beauty. So because of my experience, so also I know some contacts. That's how we bring them in to take a look at our facility. And the first contract was actually talcum powder. Then from there we expanded.
How much was the first contract?
I think it was like a few thousand ringgit.
About 3,000
3,000
was the
ringgit.
story reported in the Star.
Correct.
How much is your biggest single client contract now?
Now, one of the biggest, I think, is going to be 20 over million. One biggest.
Come on,
customer.
takkan tak dapat tepuk tangan kot. From 3,000 to 20 over million.
That's a single customer.
Understood. What's the secret? I mean, if you forget everything else, tariff, non-tariff barriers, Professor Lim always give me headache. You must forgive Professor. He had to go through what is happening in Hong Kong. Umbrella lah, demonstrators. So he had to get past that. So he will go through barriers. We no need. We only come here, jam only at Jalan Duta. How do you get from 3,000 to 20 over million? That means your factory in Shah Alam is no longer good enough. You have to move to a new spanking 6 acres in Klang. Wow, see, I'm a good seller also. I think 40% of that is on R&D of the acreage of the build-up area. So definitely you have to have all the ISOs and the GMPs and the halals and not. Was that among the main criteria to move to a new facility so you could cater to a higher, more standardized and of repute product?
Because I think in cosmetic, as I mentioned, it's a regulated. So I think it's I would consider quite highly regulated. Even some food you don't have to register before you place them in the market. So for cosmetic, we have to do that. So first thing, we must have a GMP license, and that is certified by the Ministry of Health. Now it's called NPRA.
Okay.
And then after that, we also apply for ISO because that is more international recognized. And we also now, there's an international GMP, the ISO 22716.
Okay.
I think this helps us to go into export market and also recognition from international.
Share with us your first export breakthrough. The first batch that you exported. What was the experience?
I think it was fantastic. If I remember correctly, I think the first export market was in Vietnam. I think it's to Vietnam. So that is a very fantastic. Just now when the TC mentioned, it's very familiar for us, in Vietnam. So that is what we do. And after that, the export countries has expanded. And I also follow MATRADE missions.
Okay.
They also help us in getting contacts. But we are quite lucky. Most of our customers are through referral, actually.
Susah ke senang?
Beginning sangat susah. Sangat susah.
What is difficult? Because MATRADE is here to help.
Yeah.
You can network together. If you can solve already the problem and you don't have to repeat it. So what's among the main barriers?
In fact, now for us, because we don't own brand, I think those who own brand make it much easier. So for us, when we go, we say we are selling our services, So, and then we have to use other brands as a benchmark. So that, like for example, now we are better off because we have already produced for quite a lot of markets, so they are well off. But in the beginning, we really have to go and sell our services. That is quite tough for us.
Okay. Okay. The first round, I'll do it like this. Kita grill sikit lah to get the situation hotter. I like automotive issues in this country. Even the great Professor Lim, who's been in Hong Kong for most of his life, talk about Malaysia, mention flying car. Proton also don't have. I am a proud owner of Proton. My Proton car is a 1984 first version, engine Orient. Plate is RB2002. Go and take the 4 echo number. No, don't say that. If pass goes to power, die. I want to share with you a story about me being a young journalist talking to a CEO of an automotive company. So everybody was excited with the new model. So I'm being the rebel in the group. Tan Sri, can you tell me why, if we have new models, would the new models not have this problem or not? Whenever Malaysians approach the toll, in front we see the door opened first, then the hand came out. Have you seen this? Nobody seen this. Am I that old? You all so young. Who has seen that? Door open, then hand came out. Alah, belagak lah semua ni. Never mind. I always kena tipu. Lately, I saw plate R in KL. Bentleys, Porsche, even the hard to get car like that, that robot transformer thing lah, that bumblebee car, also have R plate. Rupanya they bid from other state online using JPJ, very clever. I thought my home state had, new wealth. Because dulu antara benda yang dikutuk adalah, oh, you from Perlis Perlis no McDonald, right? Perlis no traffic light, right? Perlis R, still single digit R, right? Oh, now you guys want my number plate. Okay, never mind. So, why was the door open? Because the power window always fail. Why does the power window always fail? Because perception says, vendor lah. Proton has puluh-puluh vendor, and perception-wise, politics or otherwise, the vendor is the cause of why national cars are not good. Since I have Ingress here, even though it's Ingress Thailand, so see, I move forward a bit. Haji Hamidi Maulud, the president and CEO of Ingress Industrial Public Company Limited, Thailand. Thailand has overtaken Malaysia, even though Malaysia started first to build our national car, to be known as Detroit. You know where Detroit is? Great Lakes. On the social media, you can see mafia stories. Detroit is the center of car automotive manufacturing in the US. So the Detroit of ASEAN is actually Thailand. So that's where Ingress is also now producing not just for the Thailand market, but back to Malaysia and the other countries. You know that thing that goes outside your car window, that's what they do. They also have front end module, panel B assembly, pillar, whatever. But I want to ask you that first question, because a lot of SME here, where do you stand on the perception that it's always the vendors? I want to change that perception here, because Ingress has proven that not only can you supply back to your country, you have export market, you know, wanting your product, and you were even accepted as a company in Thailand. So please give us that first.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And still good morning to all members. First and foremost, to MATRADE, thank you very much for inviting me on behalf of Ingress. And Encik Kamarul, you look exactly similar as in TV, in the TV screen. So expecting somebody taller.
I use Body Basics. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Move on.
So that's good product for you. Okay, going back to your question about the vendors being blamed for the qualities, everything. Just to share with you, for most of you that are not well aware about Ingress, we are a public listed company in Thailand, SET, one of the first foreign company owned to be listed in Thailand. We have operation in Malaysia, of course. We have 3 plants, Thailand, Indonesia, and also India. So going back to the question, why does normally the vendor get blamed for all the issues? First and foremost, if you have that perception, we can tell you now, in Thailand, we are open for competition directly. We, together with our partners, we compete directly with all major vendors, and also some of it are transplant from Japan, and also the subsidiary of major OEMs. So we are without any relationship directly with the OEM. We compete directly in all the countries we are presented, especially in Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, as well as India. So we can compete.
Okay.
And going back to the question, there's a perception, but you must remember, once the product is approved by the customer, the product is being installed by the car, the responsibility of the car product will be borne together with the OEM.
Correct.
So we go through the natural quality assurance, and it's quite stringent.
Okay.
For your information, product, I think most of you have not seen the product that we are doing, except for the dosage. It is based on Eli and in Thailand. Any single scratch or malfunction will be rejected, and there is rejection, especially will be issued one customer complaint, DCRS or whatever the term of individual company they name it, and we have to prepare a elaborate answer, which requires at least 3-4 days to come up with the countermeasure, preparation, the inspection, re-audit, and it's quite stringent. So that's a allowable tolerance, but the product, we have to ensure zero defect going to the customer. That's the normal trend.
Okay lah. Tell them lah, among the brand that they know, maybe they don't know, they don't look at who manufacture dosage. The car, the automotive partners are?
Okay. For Ingress, we supply nearly all. In Thailand, Thailand we cover every model except for Toyota. But Toyota in Malaysia, in Indonesia also Toyota, we supply to Toyota, Honda, Prodo of course, and Proton, Mazda, Mitsubishi, I think then a few, Suzuki in India, we are one of the customer, because Suzuki owns about 52% of Indian market, and they produce about nearly 4 million cars. In Thailand, about 2.2 million. So we supply nearly every OEMs.
So
with
no,
our local.
No European lah, you very
European
Asian.
We have, because presence of European car makers in ASEAN especially is about, in Thailand about 43%, very small number.
Okay. So whoever drives German cars, switch. Come on lah, help Malaysian
We
companies.
also dealer in Volvo, Audi,
Okay.
and BMW. So
Only to Volvo, okay. Never mind, move on. Also want to dispel another perception. Because when you go export, you must be top of the mind. You must be the strongest brand and most trusted and credible. E&E, you know, is a key export and activity of industry for us in manufacturing. But it's very rare for me to meet locals who can compete at global level straight away at any single juncture of the value chain. And when the national budget recently allocated 50 million for 5G, people thinking, 5G not here yet. Bagi kat siapa? Buat apa? So those kind of questions came and they were even sent to me. So, Dato', thank you so much for being here. I know you're very busy. Can you tell us, because when I was new at being a journalist, I had to go to this place called MIMOS. And MIMOS was heading this task force to look at how do we make E&E and also semiconductor industry, especially in Penang, to move up the value chain. So that if that company called Intel don't have to go to Vietnam because we are better at technology. And then there was discussion about optronics. I nearly flunked my physics in school, but I have to study for 7 days to understand optronics ni apa. Instead of going silicon, why you use light, for example, phototronics and all this stuff. So I want to go to you, because not only have you managed to supply to the best in the world, and as we use more mobile devices and more cars using smart things, you produce more. You have even gone to the courts of America, you know, to fight for IPs and patents issues. So many of you like to manufacture, but if I ask you IP, R&D, so this is where I want to come to you at. If you can please give a bit of a background of your company and link it to the high-tech world that you are flying the flag for Malaysia. Over to you, Dato'.
Hello. Okay, yeah. Hi. Good afternoon. Thank you to MATRADE for inviting me, and also Encik Kamaru, the star, for this session here. Further to your question, I'd like to share a little bit what we do. Yeah, we are designer, developer, manufacturer of high-performance test socket solutions to the semiconductor industry for the testing of IC chips that goes into your smartphone, the cars that you're driving, IoTs and all that. That's what we do. Every IC produced need to be tested for its reliability, and that's what we do. I started from my kitchen.
Kitchen in the house?
Yeah, in the house.
Serious?
20 years ago, to my bedroom, to a 700 square feet of office.
Okay.
One person. I have to work from 8 something in the morning to next morning. Yeah, before I can really have a view of this industry. I went into this industry by accident back in 1999, and the market is very good. But then came year 2000, the whole market collapsed because Y2K no issue.
Correct.
So the market was having a very high inventory. So semiconductor houses are very fast to reduce headcount. VSS comes in and all that, and that's the time the crisis also means opportunity. So I went into this market as a company that does reverse engineering, how to make the test contact plates or test contactor and all this better for a customer here. If you are an engineer with a semiconductor house and if you don't have project, you are redundant. So at the time, a lot of companies are importing these materials and these parts. They're looking for localization, and I went in the right time. I spent a lot of money, but without having to get any orders because there wasn't much production, yeah. So I wanted to quit after 2 years, but God is great, huh? So the market picks up again, the inventory went down. So my product that I work with them start to kick out very good. And then by 2003, 2004, the next generation of IC devices that comes out that goes into your smartphone. That's the time whereby I move up the value chain from a reverse engineering player to an OEM. So I work with some of the best local automation house, supported them. They couldn't believe that I can produce such a thing for them. So we hit it right and we grew. Yeah, we grew, and for about 7-8 years later, 2008, we float the company in the domestic market in order to raise funds to further develop our technology. At the very same time also, come 2008, 2009, there were the subprime issues, the market went down. I was looking at our business. The OEM was good, but it wasn't great. So I moved up the value chain again, but this time into original design manufacturing. Okay. So I have to employ a new set of graduates, designers, and we have many locals, great designers that we have. Right? And then I brought in new machineries, and I started to work on export market. I'm looking at stepping out in the global market. A lot of uncertainty, but thanks to MATRADE, the officer and they were very supportive, and I went out with them and never looked back. We move up the value chain faced with a lot of challenges. We have a great product. We went to the US. We challenged the top players in this field for RF applications. Right? We are taking the customer away from them one by one, simply because our product outperform the world number one. So to protect their market, they sue us in the US. It was very painful because US is not cheap, right? So last July, the case was concluded in the appeal court in Washington. After 5.5 years of fighting, because I feel that we have not infringed, because our product outperform. It has to do with the design. It has to depend on the way the product works. The result was different, right? But you're in the US. So at the height of this US-China trade war, we failed to overcome the jury verdict. So after 5.5 years, we actually have to pay in total 17 million ringgit in legal fee plus the damages. Right? So after 5.5 years, this thing happens, right? So one door closes, 10 windows opens now. Over the last 5.5 years, our team is more cohesive. Our team works, harder and better and faster. And today, JF is one of the proud owner of 62 patent files. Yep. We have 14 patents granted and 2 pending for the RF 5G application. Yes. Right? And we have 2 patents granted for the and 27 pending for the automotive application segment. Okay. So all in all, we are one of the top patent owners in this test socket application, yes. Not just locally but worldwide in the recent years. And also, in the height of this US-China trade war, I have to thank Mr. Trump, because of what he does to China. We are now qualified with the world number 1 5G player, which is Huawei. Yeah. So we are just being qualified last August. Yep. Yeah. So as I said, one door closes, 10 windows open for us. Right? So
that's the way to success in the export market. Let people sue you. No, I'm just kidding. No, but in media, there's no such thing as bad publicity. It's how you use it. Same thing with Huawei. So I'm now self-electing. Is going to call Dato' the Huawei entrepreneur of Malaysia. Huawei went through the same thing. Astro visited Huawei's campus in China. It's bigger than Perlis. Oh my God, every time they lost billions because of what Trump did, they find new ways. Their R&D bucked up. tak payah CEO suruh. The CEO keynote to their town hall should be a keynote address to all CEOs and leaders in institution, because to them it's not a problem. And they are proud of their country, they are proud of their product, they are assured of what they do, they know this is not their mistake, but they're not going to say, nak buat macam mana. So they found new ways, and their EBITDA, that thing that accountants like to look at, is even higher after what Trump did. So you, Dato', are the Ziran Feng of Malaysia. Thank you.
Thank you.
And YB orang Sabah. So I have to go to Sabah now. Thank God I have a Sabahan on my panel. Mr. Tan, I think we should have coffee after this, because if you take out your mobile devices and Google right now, Kimani's food industry is very secretive one. I couldn't find a single local media article. So this is great because you're going to have exclusives here. So guess how much is the snacking industry worth? Come on, anyone, give a guess. Mak-mak semua, bapak-bapak yang marah anak makan snack, jangan cakap. I want only those who snack, like me. I snack a lot because I want to be kurus. Anybody snack here? Whoever snacks can get a free on-air time on Astro Awani with me. Tak mau? You don't want? Oh my God, you don't like Astro Awani. Don't want to talk to you lah. USD 10 billion for ASEAN alone. This is a figure given by the leader of Mondelez. So imagine that, 40 billion, 40 billion ringgit Malaysia market a year in ASEAN. So Kimani's food industry, that's why no stories much. But I like you because you used to work in the media. That's how he started in his CV. So I like you, you are my friend. But tell us now, how do you move from, getting past the problem locally, like permits and everything, and who wants to buy, what kind of packaging, what name? I think D-Jack is so cool, D-Jack, But I don't know about Sinaran and prawn, but D-Jack has D-Jack Sinaran for prawn crackers. So tell us how, it's not easy to start anything outside Peninsula. Malaysia is very biased. You can argue otherwise, I'm very convinced. Just like Indonesia, Java has almost everything. In Malaysia, Peninsula has almost everything. And if you want to start any industry, manufacturing, especially in the eastern side, it's not easy. But you guys have managed to survive since the 80s. Tell us a bit about how it began, the history, and you want to be public listed now as Kimani's Food Industries, and you want to be a global player. Link us that story.
Okay, thank you, Kamaru. When I learned that this Astro Awani guy is going to be our moderator by the name of Kamaru, I was quite worried because this is a tough guy interviewing all these foreign ministers, throwing questions that they don't have the answers. But anyway, I met this CEO of MATRADE, Datuk Wan. He said, don't worry, speak whatever you like.
Yes.
I'm not going to speak whatever I like because the lunch will be very cold by the time I finish. Good afternoon. There's more than 1,000 participants, SME entrepreneurs who are doing business and wish to export. In fact, export is a totally different world. To start with, Kimani started as a cottage industry, making snack food in Sabah. In fact, starting in 1987, selling to Sabah only, Sabah market. And after getting some momentum, our management has a foresight. The local market is very limited. You don't grow your population by 30% overnight. You can't. but the world outside is very big. So we decided to do some exports. But how do you go about it? You don't know where to go. Who wants your product? I think luckily there is a ministry who looks after that, who gave us MATRADE. Please give them a big hand. So we began to be associated with MATRADE, who will point the direction of exhibitions, trade missions, logistics, and we started going to exhibition in 2012 following MATRADE. Started in Dubai, and when we were in Dubai, the commissioner of MATRADE there was, their staff were very friendly. They gave us all the logistics, all the population, all the customs, and all the information you needed to do business in Dubai. And that's when we started. And myself and my colleague, Miss Sonia Huang there, the pretty lady, please stand up. Miss Sonia, that is our operation manager, and we do take part in almost all the exhibitions, overseas exhibitions organized by MATRADE. From there, information begin to trick in. Actually, we thought our products were beautiful, and you should buy it when you see it. But this is totally different. When they touch your product, they love it, and then they come back with a lot of questions for you to answer. Do you have ISO? Do you use coloring agent? Because the GCC country, the Gulf Cooperation countries, do not allow you to put color. That means your coconut snack, your prawn snack, your green pea will be all white. A lot of problems will come up. But then, bit by bit, we learn from the exhibitions, people who feedback, and they started to accept our adaptations. We have to adapt. And then we begin to learn about politics, wars affecting ourselves. For example, a few years ago, we were exporting very well in Yemen. And the last 2 containers, he wanted to send me money for the deposit. I said, wait. 1 week later, the port was bombed. There was civil war. So the whole country's business completely stopped. Recently, Turkey, because of the American sanction, their lira dropped by 10% overnight, making import very expensive, but export, now they become our competitor. Where if you go to exhibition, you see a lot of Turkey factories trying to export because the money, their currency has dropped a lot, making their product very cheap. As a kampung boy from Sabah, hello Paris. As you know, at the far end of the country, things are different. Infrastructures, shipping, logistics, supply of raw materials are less convenient. Here you have hundreds of companies supplying ingredients, carton boxes, packaging materials. Over there, because the industry is only beginning, there are not many suppliers of this. And everything has been imported, either from overseas or from Semenanjung. And for the last 40 years, there is a government policy of cabotage. That means all the containers going out from Malaysia has to land in Port Klang first, and then export. For example, we can ship our container to Manila within 3 days. But due to this policy, containers has to go to Port Klang, and then from Port Klang, go to Manila. Freight charges is double, and the time of traveling has tripled.
Mr. Tan, at the risk of MATRADE kicking me out of this hall, you didn't bring this to MATRADE lah. MATRADE have minister go cabinet discuss lah. Cannot lah.
No, we did,
Okay.
and they have done their part. And in 2015, this cabotage policy was suspended for 2 years.
Right.
But in 2017, it was reinstated, and now the Sabah industry is trying to overcome this.
Okay.
Indeed. But I must say, MATRADE really is the force behind our, I wouldn't say success, our increase in the export.
Yeah.
Because not only that they introduce us to the countries, to the cities, which we are able to export, they also have a very beautiful program called MDG, Marketing Development Grant, where you go for this kind of exhibitions, bring your products and try to export and try to bring money back to Malaysia. They subsidize you for your expenses. Otherwise, small companies, after attending few of these exhibitions, would have run out of fund. For us in Kimanis, we started by putting a very strong foundation in local market first.
Okay.
And then the export will bring extra income so that workers have work to do, and the economy of the state, by a small part, we play to bring up the economy.
Yes. That's why you always hear in political speeches, in songs, dari Perlis sampailah ke Sabah. That's why I said to Wabi Lim Guo Eng, at least you said that lah at para 94 of your budget speech, dari Perlis sampai ke Sabah ada satu Perlis. Never mind. That what you said at the end, you build a strong foundation here, then you go out. So I want to go to Haji now, because Ingress is a bit different there, because you went outside and established the manufacturing there at the heartland of the enemy, put it that way. If we see us as competitors in automotive between Malaysia and Thailand, football for sure. So that is a bit of a different thing. How was the decision to do that in the beginning? And then they know there are problems, political, bencana alam, banjir. So how do you maintain the confidence of the board and investors? Because cash flow is very important for any organization. Your holding investment company, your parent, always look at that. And when any uncertainty in global market, when you have a foreign presence, then that is also a great test. So how do you navigate that?
First and foremost, for your information, Ingress started as a partnership between proton vendors in the early stage. They were matchmake about 70 over companies together with the technical partner in the early stage of proton. So we participated with our partner until now, which is Qatar Makogro and Qatar Makogyo of Ibarra. So we are still partners until now. So moving to Thailand is after a certain period that the visionary of our founders, both Dr. Ramli Musa and Dr. Wahab, looking at the opportunity overseas, and also knowing that the Malaysian market, as all our panelists here, there's a potential of growing the market especially in Thailand, starting with. So we went out to Thailand during the 1998 difficult situation. At the same time also we expanded another operation, new customer in Produa. So there's two big investments at the same time. So the foresight of our bosses, our shareholder, they had a very tough time as anybody else starting on. Ingress started actually not in the kitchen of anybody, but we started off at Rumah Kedai Gambar. Just Rumah Kedai and Kedai Gambar bawah, Ingress started one small office in Bangi.
Okay.
So humble at the beginning also. So moving forward, based on that also the opportunity of having secured a business in Malaysia, with that fundamental core knowledge, core business, expanding to Thailand, and later we look into opportunity together with our partner. But going to India, we went initially on our own, without any partner, then later the partner comes together. So based on the risk, until now, after we started listing, the second board 2001, and we went to the board before, to the main board in 2004, we established our risk management committee to look into all these factors, country risk, product risk, and all this. So based on that, we move ourselves to expand according to the automotive business. And Thailand, Indonesia is the next big thing, and India is about total, in India about 4 million, in Thailand about 2.2 million production, and in Indonesia about 1 over million.
All right.
So we are there.
I'm going to speed up the discussion a bit in the interest of time. So this is almost like a rapid fire question for anyone to come in. Is it true that you really need a lot of cash and capital to be involved in an export market kind of activity? Because one, you have to have a war chest for any risk that you're going to take. Second, you got to ensure positive cash flow to support your operations, which is detached far from your home base. And in the case of JF, we've seen even what you provided for the legal thing have got to increase year by year. And there's no certainty that you're going to win or you're going to lose, and it has to go on and on. So, just a simple question. Do you really need to build up your cash capabilities before you even consider talking to an outside third party outside the country to strike any form of business or even export possibility? Any one of you can take this.
In my case, I try to go into the US market in the cheapest way possible. We were looking for a sales agent, we appointed. And we spent 1.5 years and sending our VP of sales to the US to support. It's not going to be successful. So after 1.5 years, we decided that this is not going to work. So we hired our own people, business development manager, American, based in America. Within the year, we see results. It's not cheap. Yeah, we have to pay something like maybe $150,000 US kind of remuneration package. But it produced better results. Yeah, he's able to take us into companies, and because that, and with the great products that we have, slowly we are taking the market one by one. The competitor felt it and start to delay our marketing effort, so they sue us, right? So I think, I mean, this, to me, in my view, is pretty expensive.
Yes.
You either want to go on or not on. I then share these challenges to various ministries, but they couldn't help because, the amount is big.
Correct.
If we are not financially strong, probably they could have killed company and technology like ours.
Okay.
Today, we are able to, stand tall to compete with the world best.
What keeps you going to pursue the American market? Because sometimes what is expensive? 150,000 US, but if the market revenue potential that you're going to grab is 10 million US, what if 150,000 US? Do you look at it that way during the difficult times?
Yeah, I do consider that because US is so important in the semiconductor industry. 75% of their product goes out to the worldwide market. They have very important design centers. And we need the design centers to spec in our product so that once it's spec in, the high volume manufacturing come from Asia. They must use what is being spec in, right? So it's very important for us, and this money is well spent.
Okay. Yeah. Miss Lee.
Okay, I just want to share our own experience for export because for us, I think the expenses you are talking about, whether we need a lot of money. So in this case, I think will be the traveling expenses and the time, and also not so much because we don't invest overseas. So these are basically our expenses. But actually now, like the Minister also just mentioned this morning, there is a MDG, which is a Market Development Grant. And this year the budget actually has increased to 300,000. So for those who do want to do export, actually government support a lot of, with this kind of support, that you can take part in exhibition as well in trade mission. For Body Basics case, we actually don't go for exhibition, but after talking to Hendrik this morning, she said as a OEM, actually we can also participate in exhibition. For them, actually a brand owner become an OEM manufacturer. So I think we can consider that as a, what do you call that, as our future export mission.
Cool. Haji?
Yeah, for automotive, definitely to investment overseas. We are exporting indirectly through OEM, and then OEM exporting. Our product are in Spain, South America through our OEM. But setting up facilities in overseas, especially Thailand, Indonesia, and India, is going to be needs a lot of capital.
Okay.
So that's at this point.
We only have a few minutes left. I'm just going to go to the future. Forward. We all heard the fourth industrial revolution. Everything is being disrupted, even snacks, because if somebody can manufacture snacks from waste and make it green and people taste it and they like it, they might even take it. So for each of you, what is it that you're really looking at in your business or company right now for the future? For Ingress, I'm going to put Sharat. He has to talk about automation and robotics because they signed with South Korea. Ooh, dahsyat. On that, for Body Basic, the consumers around the world are getting more in touch with nature, with humanity. Greta Thunberg is just 16-year-old, took 1 year off school, senang lah, and then go to New York on a yacht and marah all the powerful leaders. And that works. So consumer activation now is very sensitive for personal care, for example. For Dato', we all heard the 5G, but we don't really see local warriors in the 5G industry. You have given us a light. How do you want Malaysians to be with you to go into this really green new field to make it happen for us? Because I wish that we had the foresight like Foxconn. Foxconn just concentrated on what they do. Nobody knew them at the turn of the last century. Suddenly, without Foxconn, there will be no iPhone, for example. So can we be the new Foxconn in 5G? And for Mr. Tan, Panampang is great, you know, YB Dara will like it. How do you make Kimanis Food Industries the flag bearer for East Malaysia, despite all the difficulties, to move it higher in terms of you've got to jump forward to have new. If all your production lines are automated and AI and IoT, you can even partner JF. So you will be like the Amazon and eBay's warehouse that will be the stories of manufacturing around the world. And I know it's tougher to do it from East Malaysia. So the rose first.
Okay, I think all of you are aware because all of you are consumers in terms of personal care and cosmetics. Now the trend actually is going towards natural. So we, in this case, we also formulate a lot of natural products. These are natural derived, and also we also can go for eco-label, and also certain things like the sustainability in order to save energy, we can also formulate products like using less heat. That means cold blend instead of hot blend. All these are on saving energies. And the natural products, I think it will be a trend. And I think Serum now, I think the standards are here as well. Serum now do eco-label. So if we want to go, we can go into this direction to have an eco-label certified natural personal care as well as skin care. And Malaysia also, I think we have some plant extracts that we can use it and then to promote Malaysia products as well.
Okay, on Industry 4.0, we have our subsidiary, our Talent Solution Berhad, which is an automation provider. We are currently have the distributorship of collaborative robot. So if some of you are well known about it, it's a new generation robot where people and robot can work side by side and very productive in that sense. We have secured distributorship for the cobot, one of the from Korean maker, Neuromaker. We are distributor for Malaysian, ASEAN, India, as well as Arab countries. So we are now distributing and installing, exporting that from Malaysia through the assembly. We at this stage we buy the cobot, then we assemble to provide automotive solution, and we export it directly to our countries. And for cobot, we are now talking to Mari as part of the MET group to manufacture the cobot in Malaysia within 2 years' time.
Only for automotive manufacturing?
It is multiple use. Even we are now finalizing the project together with Mari also on the AGV related cobot. So it can be applied to all industry. Even split in place, and we are incorporating the basic robot and to multiple usage.
I know a lot of SMEs, entrepreneurs and founders are also very closely knit family. So just on that note, so you would need robotics engineer, mechanical, and everything, right?
Yes.
So jangan suruh dia jadi lawyer, accountant je.
And just one more, for Ingress, our manufacturing facilities in Malaysia, we are totally 100% local. We have not reliance of foreign workers due to the fact that we have automated most of the critical factors, especially to ensure quality and safety. So we can support the SME to put a cobot in place and automation in place.
Expensive or not?
We can talk, no problem.
You can talk, promise?
Maybe
takkanlah tak tepuk dia dah offer, come on.
Maybe MATRADE can offer some package or incentive and all that. We are always
MATRADE must check, Ingress do what they say. Okay, thank you. Dato'?
Yeah, after the lawsuit outcome, JF is in, hopeless end or endless hope, right? So with this closure, JF saved a lot on legal fee, right? We will use it to further develop better products. We have many more patents that is in the drafting, right? We can monetize so many patents that we have. And also, JF is lucky to be in the sunrise industry, which is the rise of the 5G.
Yes.
All right? 5G give rise to a lot of applications like, AI, IoTs, automotives and all that. So we are right at the, at the right place at the right time, right? And also, we can partner with our local automation house to provide a turnkey to the global, whoever wants these solutions to test IC.
So they can partner you for Zorro?
Yes. Yes. Sure.
Zorro is the name of the...
one of our brand, that's Zorro.
They got into trouble for Sigma, right?
Sigma, yes.
Yeah. So
but
now
we already have a replacement product for Sigma.
Yeah.
This is to show you how dynamic and how innovative our team are in the...
I totally agree with you. A free slot, half an hour, all 4 of you can take on Astro Awani. Discounts for being great Malaysians. Mr. Tan, here easy lah, talk 5G. Go there, reception got It's Malaysia. Maybe around airport area or waterfront, but go outside. So that challenge, technology, future.
Well, in fact, we were quite surprised to be told that our snack is very good, but it cannot sell. It won't sell in Europe. When we were in Cologne, Germany, they like our potato chips so much, but said, this one cannot sell. It won't sell, it fell. I said, why? People here like environmental friendly packaging. Your keropok is too shiny, too plastic. Look, I was very surprised. We came back, redesign it, make it look darker, make it not so shiny, and it sells very well in China now. You know why? Nowadays, especially China, they were a little bit late. About 10 years ago, in Malaysia, these aerated drinks like cola, 7-Up with gas cannot be sold into Malaysian schools' canteen. Later, snack food were not allowed to be sold into Malaysia canteen. In China, about 3 years ago, they advertised in the TV, on the media, telling children, don't eat junk food. Well, they have alternative. Instead of eating this keropok, they eat dry beans, cashew nuts. They have so many things. And their snacks, you won't believe their flavor made in China. Cucumber, taste, carrot, this kind. They are going environmental friendly. I think for Kimanis, probably we will start by the packaging. But at this moment, nothing can take the place of plastic bags because you use any other products to pack your snacks. After pumping the air, it may burst. Until one day where there's a degradable plastic comes into force.
Okay.
The second thing is probably we use local ingredients, like our local fruits in Sabah, that kind of taste. China, they are doing it. Why not? Otherwise, we'll be end up every time is it either prawn, crab, or chicken. That's what we are looking into it. But that is for the future. But we don't know how it's going to be. But for future entrepreneurs and exporters, the important thing is don't give up that easy. People want to see you at least 3 years to know that you are really serious in doing business.
Correct.
I believe that. Yeah. Otherwise, first year they see you, next year they come back with their proposal. You are not there at the exhibition.
Yes.
They feel discouraged.
Okay.
But this is a lucrative business and a huge contribution to the economy of Malaysia.
It's okay. I support Liverpool. I supported Liverpool for so long. Only this year, 30 years later, they might win the championship. So 3 years is nothing. Don't they deserve a standing ovation? Come on. Heroes of Malaysia and the export world, around the world, globally. Thank you so much to every one of my 4 panelists. That's the reason why I wear what I wear today. This is actually a batik made by my ex-boss. She's a journalist, editor, anchor, and now he's a batik seller, a restaurant operator and owner, and a backpacker hostel operator, and a consultant. And he just design, create. His concept is very simple. Every time batik locally, you can only see similar design, equal left and right. So he make disproportionate and imbalance. And he just create a website, suandash.com, put a payment gateway, and already he tak larat nak jawab the permintaan from overseas. Because he's not really looking at that as his main. So that's my point today. Great heroes of Malaysian export market to the world. Great heroes of all of you for daring to make your time and sacrifice your resources to be here. And I thank you for this honor because the real champions of Malaysia are the SMEs that start from nowhere but are now flying the flag for our country, and that's the best way because politicians come and go, but business are there to stay. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and our distinguished panelists, and please remain on stage. I would like to call upon Yang Berbahagia, Datuk Wan Latif Wan Musa, CEO of MATRADE, to present certificates of appreciation to our moderator and panelists. May I call upon Mr. Kamarul Bahrain Harun, our young, vibrant, and handsome moderator. Next, Ms. Lee Pang. Mr. Hamidi Maulud. Yang Berbahagia Datuk Fong Wei Kuang. And Mr. Hendik Tan Ek Pew. Thank you, Yang Berbahagia Datuk Wan and our distinguished guests. A group photo, okay. Thank you, Yang Berbahagia Datuk Wan, Mr. Moderator, and our distinguished panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, our program continues with another panel discussion on alternative financing to scale up your business, entitled Out of the Box Funding Platforms for a Sustainable Business. The moderator for this session is Ms. Rina Neo, co-founder of Ficus Venture Capital Sdn Bhd, Senator of Malaysia to the World Business Angel Investment Forum, and she's also the member of MATRADE's Board of Directors. Ms. Rina has more than 20 years of experience in both the corporate and entrepreneurial world. She has delivered multi-million-dollar returns for small business enterprises which she has incubated, coached, invested in, or promoted. Let us welcome our moderator, Ms. Rina Neo. We have three panelists for this session. First up, Ms. Elaine Lockman, co-founder and director of Atta Plus Sdn Bhd, a licensed Malaysian equity crowdfunding platform. Ms. Lockman is actively involved in the startup community, advising entrepreneurs on funding, strategy, and operations. In March 2019, she was presented with Berg 2019 Women Icons Malaysia Award as a recognition for her contribution, achievement, and leadership in fintech. Let us put our hands together for Ms. Elaine Lockman. Our second panelist, Mr. William Du, founder and CEO of Ingenious House Group. Mr. William Du is also the chairman of Virtu Capital Limited, an investment company listed on the London Stock Exchange. Mr. William has extensive experience in debt and equity fund raising, corporate restructuring, corporate development, and competitive strategy. Let us welcome Mr. William Du. Our third panelist, Mr. Nurhizam Abdul Kadir, Vice President of Export of Growth Ecosystem Development Division of MDEG. Mr. Nurhizam brings with him almost 20 years of experience in multi-market technology and energy industries in various markets across Asia Pacific. Let us put our hands together for Mr. Nurhizam Abdul Kadir. Ms. Rina, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I must apologize that we had a little bit overrun, but I thought talking about money is the only way to keep you guys in this room. So between money and lunch, I think money is a little bit more important. So I'm very glad to be back at this stage. I remember in 2017 when Tokpa invited me to come back to talk about doing business in ASEAN. I was at this stage and Tokpa said, come back. You've been away for too long. I said, one day. So probably today is the day. And today we're going to talk about alternative funding. And we know that governments are supporting SMEs and businesses going overseas through MATRADE. But there are importance in also raising funds and getting funding from the private sectors. So with me today are some of my good friends who are working with me in this capital sector. So we have Ms. Elaine, William, and Jizam. So I will let them shortly introduce themselves, and then we'll go on to the questions that we all have burning in our heart as an entrepreneur. How do we raise money from these people? How do I raise money, and do I have to give all my hard work away because they invested in my companies? So without further ado, can I just get Ms. Elaine to start?
Hello, Assalamualaikum, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm very pleased to see a lot of interest from the SMEs in terms of going regional, and we see that a lot nowadays, especially with opportunities being available. Yeah, and what I do is I run a business, a company, a equity crowdfunding company, and I'm not sure whether all of you are familiar with equity crowdfunding or the concept of crowdfunding. So the concept of crowdfunding is actually sourcing funds from the crowd, and the crowd can be retail investors or sophisticated angel investors, corporates, institutions, anyone for that matter. So it's the public and private sector actually. So the concept of crowdfunding is not new. So previously, when people want to fundraise in the past, they would go to their community or people that you know, and you will fundraise whether it's for a cause or for to establish new ideas or even to set up a new business, right? Or even existing business for that matter. But with technology, the internet, social media, and mobile technology, especially now, you can actually access those people that's beyond your community, even beyond geographies, yeah, beyond borders, and these are the people that you can pitch your idea or even your cause to, who actually may want to support them, okay, and they actually resonate with whatever you're pitching about. So what we do is we provide a platform whereby you businesses, especially who wants to fundraise through this kind of funding mechanism, is able to. And in Malaysia, the government has regulated this through the Securities Commission. And what's available right now is equity crowdfunding, which is actually fundraising through equity by giving out shares of your business. Or we also have P2P crowdfunding. So P2P crowdfunding is actually debt. Yeah, so you can actually raise a loan through a P2P crowdfunding platform to access for funds from the public. Yeah, Malaysia is one of the first countries in the region to allow for equity and P2P crowdfunding in Malaysia to be done. This kind of platforms has been available for the last 3 years actually, and to date for equity crowdfunding, we've funded, I just mentioned to you, because I presented the report yesterday at Securities Commission, we've funded 69 companies, we've done 70 ECF campaigns, and we've raised close to 70 million ringgit in the last 3 years. Whilst P2P crowdfunding, there has been over 6,000 campaigns, and they have raised close to 522 million ringgit just in 2 years, okay? And let me tell you why. The reason being is I think these are a lot of the underserved companies or companies who find it challenging to raise funds from traditional fundraising platforms, especially through financial institutions. And this is one of the reasons why Securities Commission allowed for crowdfunding to be available in the country, because they find that a lot of SMEs especially find it very difficult to meet the requirements of the traditional financing institutions. So for crowdfunding, only Sdn Bhd businesses and enterprises are allowed, yeah, to fundraise on the platform. Okay.
Thank you, Elaine. Can I have a show of hand? Who has not heard of crowdfunding? Not heard. Who is here to raise fund for your companies? Nobody is raising fund. Okay, 1, 2. Okay, good. I think when we build a business, it's always the fear of our hard work being taken over by someone else. That's usually the fear of an entrepreneur. So crowdfunding allows you to, I personally love crowdfunding. I've invested in one in Sweden because it allows your idea to be tested in the market. If somebody say, I'm going to invest $5,000, it means he or she believes in your product. And sometimes, we can shout and talk about how good our product is, but market validation is actually the best. From a VC point of view, sometimes when a company has already gone for crowdfunding and said that they have raised X amount of money, we like it a little bit more rather than, one investor that says they put a whole chunk of money. So crowdfunding is good for, I guess, people who has got an idea, wanted to test the market, but the cons, there's always pros and cons in whichever structures you use. It's just that perhaps crowdfunding is to retail market, unless you are a company that perhaps wants to go to London, for example, and you need a strategic investor. So let's move on to William. I've known William for a long time, and we have worked on some deals, and I think William is in the business of assisting SMEs, especially in listing them in London Stock Exchange or even Australian Stock Exchange. So, William.
Hi, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, since the topic is about financing, and IPO is definitely one of the financing alternative for SMEs. Okay, in a lot of countries, especially in the Western world, where Rina mentioned London or Australia, you don't have to list with any track record. Okay, you have an idea, even your company is losing money, you can list, because if you believe in free market, it's up to willing buyer and willing seller. Okay, so therefore, Bursa Malaysia has created lead market. Okay, so there is an avenue for you to actually raise funds without having the profit track record from the investor market. Okay, although they put a caveat there, you must only raise money from professional investors. Okay, if you talk about raising money using an IPO story, okay, yes, IPO seems to be easy, but those who have gone through it would not want to repeat the second time. Okay, so I would advise choose the best time or the best market for you, for your company or your product and services. For example, we did an IPO for a company called Dagang Hala in 2016. Okay, it's an e-commerce portal, right? They tried to raise money from VCs in Malaysia. They talked to merchant banks or investment banks now whether they can list. And the answer is very negative. Oh, you can't. You come back 5 years later, come back 3 to 5 years later. And and when they approach VCs, then the next question is, oh, you don't have any profit yet. You don't have, proof of concept is there, but we are not sure. Okay, it's very risky for us. So sometimes it's funny when VC talk about risk, where they're supposed to take risk, right? Okay, so what we did is we structured the IPO, okay, and we successfully raised 22 million for them, okay, and another 2 million in London. And at the end, they raised 24 million as a young and grow company without having the required profit track record as you compare to ACE market in Malaysia, for example. Okay. The deal that we did on Australia Stock Exchange last year, National Stock Exchange Australia last year, is an investing company, okay, where there's no track record at all, but the promoters wanted to do investments in early stage company. Okay, so they actually raised 2.5 million Australian dollars, okay, and listed on the NSX and invest in early stage company. Okay, so they have done 3 investments so far in the growing, I think 2 in the startup stage and 1 in the Series A. Okay, so these are the buckets that's available for SMEs to consider. Okay, of course, the process is more thorough, it's more difficult than if you list in Malaysia, okay, but that's definitely an alternative financing way for your business, especially if you have plans to export or grow into a foreign market, then listing in overseas has its advantage. All right, thanks.
Thank you, William. I think, what William's trying to say is the timing is important, and who you actually raise the money from is equally important, because getting an investor in, I always tell the startups, is like getting into a dating game, and then eventually when they sign the term sheet, you are getting married. So if you get married to the wrong investor, it will be quite traumatic, right? So Hizam is actually doing a lot of work in the ICT world, which I think for us in MATRADE, this is one industry that we are looking forward to promote, technology. Hisam, can you share with us, some of the work you do? I know that there are, all of us know about Grab. Grab is used to be a Malaysian company, but I'm sure with, everybody's, especially MDEC, we could potentially identify another Grab.
I'm very confident about it. Yes. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Hisam Kadir. Assalamualaikum. I'm from MDEC, and my responsibility within this government organization that spearheads digital economy is to build ecosystem. And building ecosystems is very instrumental. I was having conversations with Puan Syari Matun earlier, that it's not as glamorous as front-facing, but it's crucial because in order for you to help to attract investments, building local tech champions, hopefully another unicorns from Malaysia, that ecosystem needs to be robust. In MDEC, what we do in building ecosystems is to focus on technology. Of course, there's a lot of focus on data analytics, there's a lot of focus on AI and machine learnings, and e-commerce is a big thing and something that we've been working with MATRADE very closely, especially in ensuring that our SMEs are using digital platforms to export. We're also looking into the startup ecosystems because startup ecosystems are the ones that are going to eventually become larger companies. You have to bring Grab, and I think Warren has separate discussions on that, right? Not just on this stage, but there are a lot of opportunities that are made available right now for this type of companies. I'm just wondering in the hall if there were to be any technology companies.
Can I have a show of hand? Technology companies?
All right, there are quite a number of, okay, all right, good.
Not bad.
Digital economy, ICT, as it was known before, when MDEC first started, something that's very synonymous to MDEC is MSc. But back then, MSc focused on ICT and it was just a vertical. But when you look at technology right now, it cuts across horizontally. Every single aspect, whether it's retail or manufacturing, agriculture, finance, and Elaine and I were at Securities Commissions yesterday. A lot of discussions, a lot of wipe and buzz around fintech. And of course, like any other companies as well, would require capital support. Funding is one of, if not one of the most important criteria in helping for the companies to grow, right? Of course, government regulations, talent, infrastructure, and everything else are equally important as well. But to look into specifically funding, from MDEC's standpoint, I receive a lot of proposals and a lot of companies from early stage all the way up to seed level to even post-seed knocking on our doors and asking how we can help. MDEC does have some form of grants. We don't take equity, but our role is to connect with ecosystems like Elaine, for example, and other VCs and private equity players to help them in raising funds. But I always throw back to these companies. I call it, it's my abbreviations, I call it SVB. First, whether the venture itself is scalable, right? Scalable in the context where can you turn 1 ringgit that somebody invests and turn it into 10 ringgit in 5 years' time, right? If you don't have that vibe that you're able to do that, you may not be ready to be receiving any capital. Second is about velocity. Can you make 1 million? You can make 1 million in 6 years, but we want to invest in a company that makes 1 million within 6 months. And last but not least is about building business. So it's SVB, right? Building business. A lot of companies tend to be focusing on product. Building business is most important because you're looking at it from a long-term perspective. And building business does not necessarily mean you have a robust spreadsheet. It's also about how are you solving a specific problem that would then ensure that your business has sustainability. So if you don't have that SVB, maybe you may need to rethink of your business strategy or perhaps bootstrap first before you start raising funds. Because once you start raising funds, all other problems coming in, as just what you rightfully said about having a marriage and ensuring that your investors are on the same journey with you as well.
Thank you so much. I certainly, agree with your abbreviation, because as an investor, many years ago, I tend to look at beautiful presentation, 5 years projection from someone who had an idea. But today, after paying lots of tuition fees, I'm not that stupid anymore, because, today you tell me you have this great idea and you give me in 5 years, you're going to make X dollar. It's all, plucking numbers from the air. But what I've learned is that the difference between someone who built a business and someone who just want to be an entrepreneur, there's one distinction, is whether the person, the driver, is passionate enough, have the grit to see it through. Your idea A that you presented to the investors may pivot to become A plus or even B, but do you have the tenacity to see it through? So Elaine, I think if I'll just put on my hat as an entrepreneur, and if I have a product and I think that I need funding, and I have I can only go to MDAC when I'm ready to export. But probably if I'm ICT company, I can go to MDAC to ask for grant. But normally, entrepreneurs that come to you, what are the few questions that they normally ask? Am I ready to raise fund? And if I raise fund, does investor, do I have to report to the investor every day? Do they, come and mess up my company and my life? So how do you actually address that? How do you tell them that it's okay, don't worry?
Okay, so I think with regards to crowdfunding, especially for us, we've got two constituents, yeah? We've got the entrepreneurs, the business owners, as well as the investors. And because we are regulated by Securities Commission, we must make sure that at the end of the day, these companies have certain consciousness in terms of compliance, okay? And why? Because you are talking about, you are soliciting investments from the public, and these individuals are going to be your investors, and you want to make sure that whatever information that you're presenting are legit, are transparent, and with full disclosure, so that these investors know exactly what they're getting themselves into, right? Because our platform, we don't manage funds. We are facilitating the investments. The money is actually the public's money. So this is like an IPO, right? But for Sendirian Berhad and limited liability partnerships entities, yeah?
What's the minimum amount?
Minimum amount, there's no minimum, all right? In terms of fundraising, the maximum amount you can fundraise on this type of alternative fundraising platform is 5 million ringgit in total. And for every fundraising round is 3 million ringgit. So some people also ask me, what's the minimum that investor can put in? It really depends on the investment terms of offer of the individual businesses. The smallest amount that we have accepted to date is 10 ringgit, believe it or not, okay? Because the business owner offered by per unit share, okay? But most of the time what we see is that a lot of business owners, they don't want to deal with single units investment, so they will block their shares. They block the share units. But coming back to your question in terms of, okay, do I have to do reporting and so on? Yes, because at the end of the day, right, you are responsible to your investors because it is not your money, it is other people's money, okay? So for the platform, for us specifically, we have an investor relations dashboard whereby we really encourage the business owner to submit quarterly reports. Now, these quarterly reports are not like the public listed companies' reports. Yeah, the reporting is a bit more relaxed. Yeah, so it's almost like a newsletter. But you must give some numbers, yeah, in terms of whether you're on track, in terms of meeting your business plans, if you're not on track, what you're doing about it, and so on and so forth. And I'm glad to announce that the Malaysian government truly believe in this type of fundraising, alternative fundraising channel, and they've put in 100 million actually in total, plus last year's budget, all right, to support, to co-invest with the public in this type of fundraising infrastructure. So for every 4 ringgit that the public puts in, that the crowd puts in, the government will match with 1 ringgit, okay? So if you've raised, say, 800,000 ringgit, the government will pump in another 200,000, up to a maximum of 500,000 per campaign, fundraising campaign. Yeah?
I think that's absolutely good news. I think most of the time, the DAG that I see coming to me is when they want to fundraise, a big chunk of it is actually for growth, growing overseas. Now, of course, now we know that besides going overseas using grants, we have an alternative channel that can support the growth as well. So, William, you have been dealing mostly with SMEs going overseas. What I have actually realized is that in Malaysia, there are many great SMEs, but they were doing business here in maybe 20, 30 years, family runs business, doing pretty well, pretty contented. And we try very hard to say, go overseas, but they are takut. So, I know you deal a lot with SMEs, advising them. How do you actually brainwash them? Like tell them it's okay to go to overseas market, at least there's MATRADE offices there, right? But is it their business model's not ready, their structure is not ready, or is just the mindset thing? Or is it there's not enough fund to support the overseas growth?
I think most Malaysians, manufacturers or business people or SMEs are pretty contented, okay? For example, I invested in the IT company, it was 8 years ago. They were doing a 1.5 million turnover. 8 years later, or 9 years later now, they're still doing, let's say, 2 point something million, okay? They're comfortable, but if you ask them to move overseas, they tried, they say, they get rejection 1 or 2 times. And of course, like the previous speaker said, that they spend on traveling expenses and marketing expenses, and they don't see the ROI. So they give up after a few attempts, okay? Especially when they go overseas, they are on an exploratory stage, they are not targeted. They may not meet the right person, okay? And secondly, when they have, when they meet partners, okay, a lot of my clients, when China opened up in the late 90s, okay, everybody rushed there, okay? Most of them are being conned, okay? Most of them lose a lot of money. Some invested, some exported, okay? Some don't get paid, some money disappeared, okay? So over time, there's a lot of stigma that surrounds Malaysian growing their business overseas, okay? Oh, if I'm not listed, I don't want to invest overseas, okay? Because listed company has capital, okay? But in fact, nowadays, there's not much barrier nowadays because you can approach your potential partners directly. Before you even meet them, you can research them online, okay? You can get MATRADE's help. You can get, for example, if you want to go to Hong Kong, you can get Invest Hong Kong help. If you want to go to Singapore, you can get EDB help, okay? Every country has their own MITI and MATRADE equivalent, okay? So before you step out, of course, you need to look at your war chest, okay? Stepping out requires funding, okay? And basic is you need to travel outside to meet your partners or your buyer, because how would you do business with someone you have not met before, okay? So after all the online searching and all, you want to move outside, then of course, it comes to the next question like what Rina mentioned, takut, okay? So, but there's a lot of Malaysian overseas, okay? You take Singapore as, for example, at least half of those in financials or accounting practice are from Malaysia. If you go to Hong Kong, you just ask for, is there any Malaysian in Hong Kong? Okay, there's a MATRADE office in Hong Kong. There's a Malaysia Chamber of Ministers in Hong Kong, okay? If you go to the AGM, you see all Malaysians in business there, okay? Same as Australia, same as UK. At one point of time, when we were in London, one of my clients complained to MATRADE trade commissioner, the trade commissioner in London, okay? He said, hey, I can't meet the MATRADE CEO, not you, the previous one, okay? We have written many times, emailed them and called up the office. The MATRADE still is always busy. Okay, so the London, Malaysian, based in London, Trade Commissioner, picked up his phone. That time was tea time, so in Malaysia, no, it was morning, so Malaysia was tea time. He called the CEO at that time. Immediately, he said, yes, I'll be there next week when they're back. Okay, so Malaysian overseas are very, very helpful. In fact, more helpful than Malaysian sometimes. Okay, so you should tap on Malaysia MATRADE offices all over the world. Okay, especially the speakers before has mentioned Amalti and other regions. Okay, so these are the helps that are available. Okay, then you talk about funding. Okay, funding to go overseas is very costly. If you want to set up in Hong Kong, for example, you look at the office space, if you are the workforce, it's very, very expensive. Okay, therefore, a lot of companies come to us for funding, not because they're not doing well in Malaysia, but because they require extra funding when they want to expand overseas. Okay, and of course, it's not easy because if you want to get banking facility in overseas without an overseas presence, it's very, very difficult. Therefore, the only other way is to raise money from your home country, which is Malaysia, get the fund required, and then expand overseas. Of course, there's a lot of ways to structure it. Okay, when you're afraid of client or investors coming into your company, we can always find ways to help you to structure the deal. Okay, of course, that's another topic. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think, you know, when you are building a product or when you are building something brick and mortar, going overseas is a little bit more difficult. That actually going to lead me to Nizam, because you're leading ICT companies, software. You know, if I build an app and somebody download it in Africa, do I consider that I have entered Africa? Technically, why not, right? If you know, Angry Bird is downloaded 1 million times in Africa, I've already entered the African market, right? So, you know, your take on this.
I'm glad you mentioned Angry Bird because I had another example which is quite similar to Angry Bird, Pokemon. I'm sure that some of you guys catch Pokemon out there as well. A comparison, yeah? Still technology. Telephone, when Alexander Graham Bell designed and developed and later on marketed telephone, it took them 83 years to reach 50 million users. Guess how long did it take for Pokemon to reach 50 million users?
Any guess?
Any guess?
Who plays Pokemon?
Huh?
Do you know what is Pokemon? Yes.
Of course you know, right? I mean the app where
Don't
you
be
go
shy,
out there
we
and
all
catch.
play.
It's right, I play as well. It took Pokemon only 16 days to reach the same number of users, which is 50 million. And that, you know, bridges to the discussions that we had earlier with regards to how technology companies, especially cloud-based solution providers, reaching out to markets. Examples of some Malaysian companies that are already taking the benefits of the internet to be expanding. iFlix is an example, right? iFlix is Malaysia's versions of Netflix. And before you start saying, oh, iFlix is copycat, they're not. Because they don't target people like all of you, like all of us, because we are living in urban population. We have high bandwidth. I was in Malang, in Jawa Timur, and I was so impressed to see branding of iFlix is everywhere because they have their content compressed so that it will then be able to cater to customers in these tier 3, tier 4 markets that only depend on perhaps 1 or 2 Mbps, right? So it's a different business model. Where was I? Yes, internet as a medium of exports as well. So the likes of iFlix, the likes of RunCloud and other startups, the likes of IP88 mobile payment gateway, these are companies that are riding onto the advancements of infrastructure to be able to tap onto various markets. RunCloud is a small startup. Guess where is the headquarters? Kluang Johor. That's where the headquarters is. He recently moved to Cyberjaya, right? But 84%, or maybe more than 80% of his customers are from the US. So the ability of internet would now I wouldn't want to say has taken over the typical way of doing business. We still run business missions together with MATRADE, and thank you so much, MATRADE, in supporting us, because there's a need to have some form of validation, face-to-face, especially if we were to be B2B businesses, where these companies can then first be getting market validation, whether is my solutions ready for Indonesian market? Is my solutions ready for a Vietnam market? Should I be doing some tweaking to my content? Right? That market validations would help. But when it comes to expanding it to the reach, I think the opportunities of the internet is just so large, and that helps them in reaching out in a fast manner. iFlix, again, another example, only 5 years, are now in 38 countries worldwide.
Thank you so much. I couldn't agree with that. Even brick and mortar businesses that we have, mostly in Malaysia, I think there is a need to really adopt being digital. Even if you're selling tires, you're doing mining, you have to embrace digital. If not, it will swallow you alive. So I would like to actually maybe, get the panelists to share with us, the final takeaway of, we're talking about fundraising. What is that one fear that most of the entrepreneurs that you have encountered, what is that one fear that they usually have, and how do you yourself actually advise them? Maybe you can start, Eileen.
I mean, obviously for crowdfunding is not being able to raise money, yeah. So
your campaign is live, and then nobody actually subscribes.
Yes,
absolutely.
That's
sad, right?
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, a lot of people think, I'll opt for equity crowdfunding, and I'll go through the process. I'll fulfill all the compliance, and the campaign goes live. I just sit down, suddenly money, miraculously appear from the sky, and it just drops into the platform, right? Ching, ching, ching.
Yes.
Yeah, but there's actually a lot of hard work. Okay, so what we do also is that we actually counsel the companies, to say that, look, there's a lot of commitment required, and it's not just about crowdfunding. Any fundraising activities that you do for your business, you must put someone who's committed to fundraise, someone who is responsible for fundraising in your business. And the other thing is also, I want to come back to, I think, one of the things that you raised earlier, the timing of fundraising. And you must have a fundraising strategy for different phases of the growth of your business, right? Because when crowdfunding was introduced earlier, we had a lot of companies who couldn't fundraise from anywhere, and they say, oh, okay, I'll go crowdfunding, because that's the last resort. So it shouldn't be the case, right? Because so the strategy with fundraising on a crowdfunding platform is a few things. Number one is you do not want a single largest investor to control your business. Okay, so you opt for the crowd, because then you can spread the investments across many, many people. So the most number of investors that we have had to date in a single campaign is 318 investors who invested in this company, and we raised 1.5 million for this company. So that's one. Number two is about marketing, because with crowdfunding, the opportunity is the brand visibility and also your product visibility when we market and promote your campaign, because it's out there. We use digital, social media, we use PR. There's always pitching events that we organize for the company to be able to pitch their business proposition towards, yeah? And I'll give you an example of one company. Unfortunately, they did not manage to fundraise, because 2 weeks after we launched their fundraising campaign, the general elections happened. So no one was paying attention. Everyone was just focusing on, when the Prime Minister is going to be, going to come on board, why the King is not there, when is he appearing. Right? The timing is very bad. But, yeah, they had one of the, greatest PR and media coverage ever. And because of that, they secured 5 million worth of new businesses. Okay, their minimum target fundraise was 1 million. This was Kitamen actually. Yeah. So, and Kitamen is doing esports, right? So at the end of the fundraising campaign, they said, fine, you know, we've decided not to extend, but we close it, but we close big because they closed 5 million worth of businesses. Now, the other reason why companies fail is actually valuation. So valuation is important. And like Rina said earlier, you know, you can't just simply pick numbers from the sky, you know. And 90% of the companies that come to our platform are startup businesses. And most startup companies tend to value themselves high, yeah. And there's always a balance between a realistic valuation and also, you know, and what you think your company is valued at. However, having said that, it's also how good your storytelling is. That's number one. Number two is your offer. So for example, if I come back to the 10 ringgit investment, right? So if your offer to the crowd is 10 ringgit, how much due diligence as a crowd you want to do? You know, you say, okay, it's either I like the business or not, so I'll just put in 10 ringgit. If the business go bust, fine. You know, it's just 10 ringgit. But I'm supporting entrepreneurs and maybe a company that has potential. Now, as an investor, the way they think is this. If the company has got potential, then this is a high risk, high return kind of business, right? If I put in 100 ringgit, my expectation is my 100 ringgit can grow to be, I don't know, 10,000 or 100,000 or even 1 million. And why I say that is because the kind of businesses that equity crowdfunding or crowdfunding offers to the investors are companies who can grow big, like Grab or Uber. So I'll give you an example. If each and every one of us had an opportunity to invest in Uber, say $10,000 US about 10 years ago, how much do you think your $10,000 US will be worth today? Just give me a shout. Anyone? How much? 1 million? Go crazy. How much?
What's the valuation of Grab now?
Grab, the last fundraising round is about 11 billion, I think.
So take out the calculator, do your maths.
Okay, okay. It's 110 million US. So your 10,000 after 10 years is worth 110 million. So that's the potential of crowdfunding, to be able to let the general public to invest in, you know, companies that has huge potential like this. But coming back to the fear of failure, so as a company, you need to prepare. You need to prepare yourself, a good business plan, good solid numbers, but at the end of the day, it's not just that. It's good product, good business model, a good team, because you can have the best products ever, but if you have a weak team, you know, it's not good either. So it's a mix of, it's a combination of different things, yeah? So be prepared and understand your fundraising strategy, and different fundraising needs, you know, is for different, you know, phase of fundraising. So you don't, like Rina said, you don't go to a VC very early in the game. You go to a VC once you have, you know, better traction, more solid numbers, and then as you grow bigger regionally, then you go to a private equity or even listing for that matter. You don't just go listing for the sake of going listing. There's a reason for it.
Thank you so much, Elaine. In the interest of time, perhaps we can get one question from the floor. Anybody interested in raising fund here? You want to ask any question? That's, you know, we all Malaysian always very shy. When they all go down the stage, then everybody will go and ask them. Any question? Yes. Good.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Kamini. My question is, what about cryptocurrency funding and how do we go about it?
Oh, we love that subject. Everybody talks about cryptocurrency, but nobody really understands cryptocurrency. Even Manny Pacquiao also have cryptocurrency. But anyway, who is our cryptocurrency expert here? William, I suppose.
I'm not an expert, but we almost did an ITO last year. Okay, that was Bitcoin was around when we start planning. the Bitcoin is around 11,000. Okay, when we start to push hard, because Bitcoin is going to 15,000 soon, and then the next day someone say, oh, next time Bitcoin is going to be 100,000 by year end. Okay, so we keep on doing, we start to planning on that. Then when we are almost ready, Bitcoin start to crash to 8,000, 5,000, 4,000, 3,000, okay, and we keep the process on hold. So if you ask me about cryptocurrency investment, most of the countries or authorities are not sure. We are not sure either. Okay, and now you're sure.
Very sure
okay,
right now.
Yeah, I
but
see two very
but
eager.
Luno was approved 2 days ago, right?
Well, we have a platform that's full-fledged approved by Securities Commission that has taken into account investors' protection, and all of you can invest in that platform right now.
Great, I can revive my ITO now.
Okay, so I just want to share. Yeah? So for those of you who are interested to raise funds through ICO, yeah, through initial coin offering, the Securities Commission is currently in the process of coming up with regulated ICO guidelines. So it is going to be regulated in Malaysia. It's going to be available. So the target is somewhere probably before year end. And, but there are certain conditions for this. So the minimum paid up capital for any companies who are interested to fundraise through ICO, where the origination is from Malaysia, is 500,000 ringgit. And you can raise a minimum, minimum 500,000. And you can raise up to a 10 times multiple of your paid up. Okay? So, and obviously you must have your white paper, your business plan, and you need to clearly show your business plan in the token economics part of it. And at the end of the day, it is securities, right? So, and you cannot, because a lot of the white papers that we've seen in the past are all
utility.
Yeah, that's 99% rubbish, and just throwing in the words blockchain and crypto and so on. Yeah.
I think these are, really new ways of fundraising. I have invested in an ICO in Singapore. I made some money, so no complaints. But I'm glad, Malaysia Securities Commission and Malaysia is ready to adopt this kind of platform. So thank you so much, my fellow panelists. Can we have applause? This one tak payah kata lah, sikcho, So thank you so much for your time, and I hope you guys learn a thing or two. How can they contact you guys? I guess they're all on LinkedIn, so please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Rina, and our distinguished panelists, and please remain on stage. I would now like to call upon Yang Berbahagia, Datuk Wan Latif Wan Musa, CEO of MATRADE, to present certificates of appreciation to our moderator and panelists. May I call upon Ms. Rina Neo. Ms. Elaine Lockman. Mr. William Du. And Mr. Nurhizam Abdul Kadir. Thank you, Yang Berbahagia, Datuk Wan, Ms. Rina, and our distinguished panelists.